NeonicVoid Productions presents.
Yes, quite indeed.
Yes, interpret the play.
I say, good bean. You know, that's probably hella insulting to our listeners our listeners from the UK. I'm very sorry.
Like they don't make fun of American accents over there.
That's fair.
Like they don't make fun of us.
I think every English colony does that. Like the motherland and English colony, we all do that. We all make fun of each other's accents.
Yes.
Americans make fun of how the British can't pronounce their T's, so whenever they say water bottle, they say water bottle.
Well,
But and Americans they pointed that out. Like a British, I saw this TikTok where a British guy pointed this out. Like y'all don't say water bottle, you say water bottle. Like it sounds like we're saying it with a D, and I was just like,
water.
how dare you?
Water.
Like we're not actually pronouncing the T. We're not saying water. We're saying water.
Water.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah. Well, because we say it fast. We don't like actually
Water.
put the time to put the T in the water bottle. We just say water bottle or water.
Jesus, it does sound like a D.
Yeah, we pointed that out. I was like,
how about you pipe
okay,
the fuck down?
listen here, you little shit. All right. Well,
buffoonery.
anyway. Hi. Hello. How are you? What's good? Welcome back to Book Watchers. I was gonna say something really witty, but my mind went blank, so there's an outtake of just my face just going like losing my train of thought.
Seems to happen a lot.
I have a lot going on up there. Okay.
It's just a fucking desert of emptiness with one fucking, oh god, what do they call them? Oh god, what do they call them?
And you're saying my head is barren?
What?
Devin, wars have
Tumbleweed.
been fought for the real estate on your fucking forehead. Don't talk to me about it being empty up here. Anyway,
I shave my head, sir. I don't have I do
yeah,
have a big forehead.
the strip. Yeah, the strip on the side.
Listen here, Widow's Peak. We don't need to go there. We don't need to go there.
At least I have one.
Keep it going, not for long. I know where you live. I'll shave your head in the middle of the night. James will let me in. James will let me in so I can change out your shampoo for Raid. I'll get rid of it.
Raid, as in the bug spray?
Not Raid. Oh, guys, is it Rogaine? It's Rogaine.
Nair.
Nair. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Nair. I'll replace your shampoo with Nair. And you'll just lose all your hair.
Well, funny thing is Nair has a creamy consistency, and my shampoo is a clear gel. So I'll know. I will know.
You won't.
Yeah, I will. Hey,
Anyway,
my mother was a hair. No. Don't try to change the subject. My mother is a hairstylist. I know my shit, okay? She showed me. She taught me a few things.
No wonder you're gay.
Yeah, I have an excuse. What's yours?
I'm amazing. And it's in my genetics.
Amazingly ugly? Amazingly
I'm not
gay?
ugly. Mm.
Hmm. Anyway, hi, hello. Welcome to Book Watchers. I'm Jacob. And who are you?
Your paralysis demon. Devin, hi. How are you?
Well, that does explain the crushing weight on my chest in the morning.
A fat Joe too? Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Why you gotta go there? That was rude.
Mm,
Uh, I know you're joking. I'm being dramatic.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like always. Anyway, housekeeping, take it away.
Whale. In the description below. If you're lucky, take a gander. You will see a linky link to a link tree. I'll take you to all things of the podcast, to all the other podcasts of the NeonicVoid Productions, even ones that don't have this thing, whatever Jacob is. Some of them he's not on, and those are better. I'm kidding. They're not better. They're just as good.
Mm,
They're just as good. I can't make fun of Jacob like that. That's just mean. So
mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be nicer because I love him. Like I love all my friends. But yes, link in the description below. YouTube. If you want to go on YouTube and see our beautiful faces, they're there. And if you look on the video right now, you might be able to look right up Jacob's nose to see his brain or lack thereof. That's my
Yes,
shtick. Yeah.
if you look directly at Devin's forehead, you might be able to see a reflection.
Don't look too close though. You might get blind.
Mm,
It's pretty shiny up there. Just one good.
mm-hmm. It is. We're gonna take one of these days. We're gonna take some turtle wax to your forehead.
I'm still waiting. Boo. I'm waiting. Come on, let's go. Let's wax it.
Okay, well, we are not here to talk about Devin's ginormous forehead. We are
Damn.
here because we're going to be continuing. We're going to be continuing on the series that we've been talking about for the last 5 weeks now.
Yeah.
So we are going to be continuing with book 6 of the Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm.
This book will be is called The Lord of Chaos. Love it. Read it. It takes you there. It takes you places.
It takes you places.
So I will say this book is not as action-packed as the last 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of there's a lot more in like politics involved, a lot more story building, a lot more character development. We see many changes in our characters as each of them take the next steps in like their training, their development into either a better character or a worse character. And we also see tensions build between different factions. We see tensions building between the opposing Aiel factions, like the Shido are still a problem for Rand and his main force of Aiel. We begin to see how Rand is beginning to bring all these different factions together because he has the country of Tyr and Kyrene under his control, as well as Camelin. He also has the Aiel under his control, and he has to navigate these factions because the Aiel and the Kyrenes they bump heads a lot because the Kyrenes hate the Aiel, especially because the Aiel conquered them like about 20 years ago, and the Aiel hate the Kyrene because the Kyrene are what they call tree killers. They cut down the tree that the Aiel had given to them as a sign of friendship, and that's what started the war 20 years ago. Uh, he doesn't have to really worry about the people from Andor butting heads because the Andorans are pretty neutral. They have not really had any like major conflicts with Kyrene or Tyr.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, since Rand had just taken Caemlyn under his control, he has yet to actually like begin moving Caemlyn's forces across the different countries the different territories that he has under his control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Kyrenan and the Tyrenes, they bump head more because their two nations are neighbors, and while the Kyrenans, they don't really have their history and the Tyrenes' history are pretty checkered. They've had wars in the past, so the Tyrenes look down on the Kyrenan, and the Kyrenan really just hate how stuck up the Tyrenans are. So he has to really navigate all of these different issues. Rand also has to deal with both factions of the Aes Sedai. He has to deal with the consistent pressure from the White Tower faction, as Eleda herself, who has been placed as the Amerlin seat at the end of Book 4. Uh, she has sent out an invitation to Rand and calling him to the White Tower, so that way she can pledge her support to Rand as a Dragon Reborn and openly acknowledge him. And then he also has a delegation from the rebel faction from Saladar, who who they are more open and accepting of Rand as the Dragon Reborn, but sadly they're still Aes Sedai, and the Aes Sedai see Rand as something more of a pawn rather than the man who's going to lead the world against the Dark One at Timer Guide Inn. So he has to deal with all that, and we also see a lot. We see a lot of development and growth with our girls who are with the Aes Sedai. So Egwene, in this book, she joins the rebel faction in Saladar, and from Saladar, Nynaeve and Elaine eventually set out from there on a mission of their own. But before they do, for the most part, for the majority of the book, they are experimenting with their powers. They've resumed their studies, and they're really leveling up. And the same with Egwene. She levels up a lot in this book too. Her time with the Wise Ones comes to an end because the Sitters, the leaders of the rebel faction, call her to return to them and join them, and she accepts. And there's a lot that happens. So we're gonna go in order. And let me see. So aside from Egwene and the girls and Rand, the story will also be following Matt and Perrin as well. In this book, Perrin rejoins their group. So it's not like Book 5 where he was all but forgotten. I remember reading Book 5 and I'm like, I wonder what's going on with Perrin. Is he going to come back? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he comes back in this. He decides to join Rand. And Matt is now the leader of his own little troop. They've taken to calling themselves the Red Hand. Oh, wait, hold on. What do they call themselves? Let's see here. Yep. All right, cool. Sorry, I didn't cut that part out.
You're fine.
So Matt, in the wake of Book 5,
Mm-hmm.
forms his own little personal army, his own little band of soldiers consisting of Tyrenan, Kyrenan soldiers, and a few Andoran soldiers that came into Kyrene to help stabilize the region before Rand came along. So all these men are working under him, and they call themselves the Band of the Red Hand. And they really look to and respect Matt because as a Tavern, his abilities to basically change the flow, the natural flow of the pattern around him, it really manifests himself as in a form of extreme luck.
Mhm.
So he's basically like the Wheel of Time's version of Domino. So he's stupidly lucky, and he often uses that luck to his advantage when it comes to like gambling because he's a big gambler. And it also comes in handy with his when he's leading his troops. And aside from his tavern abilities, he also has the gift of memories that he received from the Elfin, from the Redstone Archway. So he has the memories of all of these long dead generals and brilliant military tacticians. So these people have been long dead. Uh, it's not really clear like who these people are, the memories of these people that he possessed, like who they were. Um, we know that they were great generals, and at one point, someone suggested that those were the memories of his past lives, but most agree that these are just memories from like really like great generals of the past, and their knowledge and experience are now in Matt's possession. So he knows more about like strategy, battle tactics, and how to organize an army, things like that, which makes him a very invaluable asset, especially to Duran's campaign. So where the book starts off,
Mhm.
Rand is working to stabilize Camelin, since he just took Camelin and removed Robin from control. He has to really work to get everything back in order because a lot of the palace's servants fled because they just thought that first they just thought Rand came to conquer them, when really what he did was liberate them from the Forsaken's control. Uh, he's had to make new allies. For example, he had gained a new ally in the form of a man named Davram Bashir. Now, Davram Bashir is the uncle and one of the one of the Lord Generals, Lord Commanders of Saldia, which is a borderland nation not far from Shinar, and he is the uncle to the Queen of Saladar,
Mhm.
and he was sent down into Andor because it was his duty to capture and ensure that the false dragon Mazrim Taim was safely delivered to Tarvalon. But when Taim escaped, Bashir tracked him down into Andor. But he had arrived just before Rand confronted Robin. So after that confrontation was over, Bashir uh, Rand and offered to help him stabilize Camelin as well as Andor, keep things in order because he had like a large force of like several thousand Saldean men.
Mhm.
So he agrees to he pledges himself to the Dragon Reborn and helps Rand keep the area stabilized until Rand can move more of his forces from Kyrene and Tyr into Andor, which he does pretty quickly because in the wake of his fight uh, with Robin, he finally figures out how to successfully open gateways for traveling. Because throughout book 4 and 5, he only learns how to partially travel through a method called skimming. So where traveling is where you open a gateway and you can instantly step from one point to another, like thousands of miles away. Skimming is something similar, but when you open a gateway, it doesn't open to like the other place you're traveling to, but it opens into this black void. And when you step into it, you step onto this platform that forms, and it transports you across a vast distance, kind of like the same way that the way gates work. And the reason why skimming exists is because when it comes to traveling, you not only have to know the place that you're traveling to, you also need to be very familiar with the place you're leaving from. So you can't instantaneously travel from one point to another if you're in an unfamiliar area. So skimming was the alternative to traveling because you could skim without knowing where you're leaving from, but you still needed to know where you're going. So it's kind of complicated, and throughout book five, that was the only way Rand knew how to instantaneously travel. But when he fought Robin, he was observing how the weaves Robin was using, and he picked up a few tricks, including how to uh, excuse me. During that fight, he figured out how to travel instantaneously. So he leveled up in that area as well as he picked up a few extra tricks from Robin, including how to weave like more complex illusion weaves. And his training with Asmodean has also taught him how to invert weaves, how to create more complex illusions, how to set traps, how to tie off weaves properly, things like that. Unfortunately, as far as Rand knows, Asmodean disappeared, but uh, sadly for him, Asmodean is dead. He at this point we don't know who killed him. I technically already know, but that's because I spoiled it for myself. But I'm not going to spoil it here.
Yeah, please don't.
So yeah, not yet. It won't be revealed until much later. So Rand has already begun moving some of his Aiel forces into Camelin to keep the city secure and hold it in place. During this time, Mazrim Taim himself arrives and accepts Rand's offer of amnesty, because at the end of Book 5, Rand set out a proclamation that any men who possesses the ability to channel will receive amnesty and no longer be persecuted by the Aes Sedai. All they need to do is come to Camelin and swear their allegiance to Rand, and he will protect them so long as they serve him. And he also stated that he will offer amnesty to Mazrim Taim because Mazrim Taim had declared himself as a false dragon. Now he had declared himself false dragon around Book 3. So while Rand was traveling to Tyr to claim Kalandor, Mazrim was causing chaos, like in the Borderlands. And when Rand claimed Kalandor, it was like the pattern has ways of shifting and working in favor of some people. And since Taim had declared himself as a false dragon, as the Dragon Reborn, the pattern was working in his favor. So every time the Aes Sedai would try to come for him, or any like armed forces tried to attack him, Taim either would always manage to escape, or he would always defeat those attacking forces. But as soon as Rand claims Kalandor and declared himself as the true Dragon Reborn, the pattern shifted. So all that extra luck that Mazrim Taim was getting vanished, and he was captured. He was captured and was well on his way to Tar Valon. But sometime during the events of Book 4, Taim escaped, and he had gone into hiding. But he heard about Rand's amnesty, so in the beginning of Book 6, he arrives in Camelin and swears his allegiance to Rand. And by this point, Rand had already been getting recruits who men who could channel, and he had hid them away on a farm far outside of the capital of Camelin. And at that point, he didn't really know what to do with them, because although he wanted to teach them himself, being the Dragon Reborn and having to lead, like, at this point 4 different nations, he didn't have time to properly train them. So when Taim arrives, this presented Rand with the perfect opportunity. So he takes Taim to the farm, and he charges him with training these new recruits, who he calls the shaman. Now, in the old tongue, a shaman means guardian. So this new order of male channelers are basically going to be called the Guardians. But he tells Taim to train them and basically turn them into weapons. He needs weapons in the upcoming battles. And well, Taim, who he wasn't entirely thrilled with that idea because I it was clear that it's clear that Taim wanted to serve more directly under Rand, like fighting alongside him, things like that, being closer to the Dragon Reborn. But when he gets his new position as the uh, as a trainer for the new school of a shaman, he wasn't entirely thrilled. But the results speak for themselves, and the Ashaman prove themselves to be a very pivotal. They prove to have a very pivotal part in Rand's army. But we won't see much of the Ashaman until much later in the book and in following books. So we'll leave them there for now. Aside from Taim being in charge of taking control of the recruitment of male channelers, Rand also shows him the weave for traveling and skimming, so that way Taim can travel to more distant places to actively recruit male channelers. He also puts Bashir in charge of organizing volunteers who can't channel into another army. So the Saldean army is going to begin growing with recruits that will directly serve Rand. And aside from them, Rand also has to deal with two separate groups of Aes Sedai, emissaries from both Saladar, which is the faction of rebel Aes Sedai who have broken away from the White Tower, and the Aes Sedai and a group of Aes Sedai who act as emissaries for Eleda in the White Tower. And the emissaries from Saladar, when they arrive in Camelin, they are accompanied by Min Farshaw, and she quickly sets herself as a go-between between the Aes Sedai and Rand, because Rand knows that he can trust her, especially since she can't really channel.
Mm-hmm.
And lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Aside from the two groups, the two factions of Aes Sedai, there's another smaller group of Aes Sedai. It's really just two sisters, Alana and Varen. We met both of these characters earlier in the book. Earlier in the books, Alana is a Aes Sedai of the Green Aja, and Varen is an Aes Sedai of the Brown Aja. Both of them have directly or indirectly aided Moraine and, by extension, Rand. The last time we saw them was in Book 4, when they had showed up in the Two Rivers, because they had gone to the Two Rivers because they suspected that the Two Rivers is ripe with potential candidates for the White Tower. And what do you know? They had found at least somewhere between 20 and 30 girls who either have the capacity to learn how to channel or who have the inborn spark to channel. And so they recruited these girls, and they were in the process of making their way to the White Tower, but at this point they hadn't known that the White Tower was divided. So they had stopped in Camelin, and that's when around the time they found out, and now they were trying to figure out, all right, what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because Alana and Varen, while their motives weren't exactly clear, they later decide to make their way and take the girls that they found to Saladar to join the rebels. But first they decide to talk with Rand to figure out what he's doing. The thing about Alana, though, something does happen, and like Alana is now on my permanent shit list because, so when she was in the Two Rivers, the Two Rivers was being occupied by the White Cloaks, while simultaneously being raided by Trollocs, and White Cloaks take any opportunity to attack Aes Sedai as well as their warders. And when Alana went to the Two Rivers, she had brought 3 of her warders, and one of them was killed by the White Cloaks. So whenever an Aes Sedai loses a White Cloak, I'm sorry, whenever a warder dies,
Mhm.
um, they do share an emphatic link with all their warders, and they feel the moment they died. So Alana had felt every arrow that pierced her warder's back and killed him,
Mhm.
and this left her in a really fragile state. I mean, it happens to all Aes Sedai if their warders die, and that's something that they have to deal with. And so Alana was more in a more or less emotionally compromised state, and um, and as many of you know, when you are in a very emotionally vulnerable or compromised position, this can lead to reckless and impulsive behavior. And what Alana does is, as soon as she gets close enough to Rand, she creates an involuntary link between him and her, making him into her warder. And
Mhm.
the reason why Alana did this is because Aes Sedai have a certain level of control over their warders, so they can compel their warders to obey them. So uh, so like that, and this is why warders are very loyal to their Aes Sedai, because through the link, the Aes Sedai can compel them to follow their directions, whether they
Mhm.
want them to or not. Now, of course, in a traditional sense, like when a warder is properly bonded to an Aes Sedai, they are fully aware that once they bond with an Aes Sedai, that Aes Sedai basically has total control, almost total control over them. So they'll be giving up a lot of their own free will. And thing is, and of course, no warder goes into the bond without being fully prepared for it. All right, so that kind of balances out that whole like scale of giving up their free will and getting and being put under the control of their Aes Sedai. But what Alana did by involuntarily bonding Rand, she was trying to basically place him under her control. But the thing is that what Alana didn't account for was the fact that since Rand himself is a channeler, he has the power to completely ignore the bond. Now, when she placed the bond on him, she immediately tried to force him to submit to her, but he resisted her and placed a shield around both her and Varen, preventing them from channeling. And he basically tells them to stay the fuck away from him and practically orders them out of Camelin.
Mhm.
They don't leave yet because they still need to figure out where they're going to go, either to the White Tower or to the rebel group in Saladar.
Mhm.
And the thing is that even though Rand is able to uh, resist any kind of compulsion or control that Alana tried to place on him through the warder's bond, uh, he still feels her. So he has an 20, so he's always aware of her 24/7, her emotional state. They can't feel each other's thoughts, just really just each other. And they know like pretty much where they are at all times. So Alana will know where Rand is almost 24/7. She may not know the exact position, but she will always be able to find him.
Mhm.
And the one thing I will say is Varen was very like really disapproved of this, and any Aes Sedai that comes across Alana in the future and they find out that the she had involuntarily put Rand under the Warder's bond, a lot of them give her the side eye, like you bitch.
Yeah, I
Like
would
even
too.
like even though, yeah, because even though like the goal of the Aes Sedai's ultimate goal is to ensure that Rand is under their control. They want to make sure that he serves their purposes in a more or less voluntary manner. But the thing is that the Aes Sedai view involuntary bonding like this as trigger warning. They view this almost as if it was like rape, because they're
Mhm.
forcing an emphatic bond between a man,
Yeah.
for themselves and a man.
Yeah.
All right, and doing that without permission, it's a very
Inappropriate
intimate
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very intimate and very inappropriate. So I was like, ooh, this bitch. Um, aside from those two, a part of when Rand comes across the girls that they brought with him, that they brought with them, he also he recognizes most of them because these girls were from his village or from the neighboring villages, and he also recognizes Matt's younger sister, and they're kind of disbelieving that he's the Dragon Reborn until he channels in front of them, and it freaks them all the fuck out. Um, but other than that, we don't really see these girls ever again. They eventually are sent to Saladar with several other Aes Sedai, because the group of Aes Sedai from Saladar are in Camelin. Alana and Varen make contact with them, and they agree to join up with them. Rand also has to deal with another group of ambassadors from the Athan Mir. The Athan Mir or the Sea Folk, are a uh, culture of seafaring people, and very similar to the Aiel in the sense that their culture is um, like very is rooted in the environment that they come from. So where like the Aiel are a desert folk, they're very hardy, they're tough, they're and they're a warrior society. The Sea Folk are a seafaring people. Their culture is centered almost totally around sailing, shipping, uh, island life, and just basically sailing the seas. And among the Sea Folk, they do have their own group of channelers, just like how the Aiel have their wise ones. The Sea Folk have their own group of channelers they call Windfinders. And Windfinders are very powerful and skilled weather workers. So they use their weaves to control the weather to give their ships like better, they take advantage of better fair winds, or if like let's say the weather is getting a little too unfavorable, the seas are becoming too rough, they use their weaves to settle the weather, so that way they'll almost always have like clear passage wherever they go. The Sea Folk have always been wary of the Aes Sedai because they fear that if the Aes Sedai discover that the Windfinders are channelers, they may try to force those Windfinders to join the White Tower.
Yeah.
So just like the Wise Ones, they've always kept their channelers a secret. But the reason why the Sea Folk have arrived, there's a delegation of Sea Folk arrive in Camelin, and another one arrives in Kyrene, is because they believe Rand is their own Messiah. They have their own prophecies of this Messiah figure they call the Koromor. And thing is, though, Rand does not really meet with them at all. He actually, like, every time they try to like arrange a meeting with him, like he's like, I'm too busy dealing with something else. Because the reason why Rand kind of brushes him off is because he's going off. He's going off of a lot of the prophecies that are very well known in the Westlands, and if anything, part of those prophecies also included the Aiel, which is why he went to the Threefold Lands to get the Aiel support.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing in the prophecies that he knows of concern the Athan Mir, and as a result, he doesn't really think like it's important to include them in his plans. So, spoiler alert: he won't actually, from this point, he won't actually make contact with them and accept their delegations until Book 8. So like that's it for the Sea Folk for now. Just thought I'd mention it because they'll keep popping up in the next few books, and they're gonna try to come to a bargain with him. But that's on Book 8. So you got 2 more books. So Rand, for the most, like I said, stays in Camelin, keep things settled, and he's also trying to get the high seats of the noble houses of Camelin to support him. For the most part, he doesn't want them to give him to elect him as their new king of Camelin, because for starters, Camelin is a matriarchy, so they only have queens, they don't have kings. And Rand wants to keep them in control. He wants to keep them uh, in check because he intends to have Elaine to take the throne of Camelin,
Mm.
the Lion Throne of Camelin. But since he doesn't really know where Elaine is, like right now, Elaine is in Saladar, and he doesn't really exactly know when she's going to return. He does eventually send Matt to Saladar to get Min, Egwene, and Nynaeve to return to Camelin for the main reason that he wants Elaine to take the throne. And Elaine learns of his intentions to give her the Lion Throne later, and this actually really pisses her off because the process of the daughter heir of Andor claiming the Lion Throne is kind of like it's kind of like an election year. She has to form uh, pacts and make allies with the other noble houses and gain their support before she can actually take the throne. Because if let's say they want somebody else to take the throne, then she has to contend with that, and she has to convince them that she's the best candidate. So
Mhm.
being the daughter heir doesn't guarantee that she's going to get the throne 100%.
Yeah.
Uh, in Kyrene, uh, Rand has pretty much left Kyrene under the stewardship of Berylene, who is the Berylene is a woman from a small nation neighboring Tyr called Mayene. So Berylin is no, her official title is the first of Mayene. So she's like the queen or like the prime minister of Mayene. Mayene has always been under the control of Tyr, but she has thrown her lot in with Rand, and she's been helping him manage estates and affairs. Because since she already has the experience of running an entire nation, she has taken on the role very well. She works alongside the clan chief Ruark to keep Kyrene under control and keep the High Lords of Kyrene from fighting again. Because there's still the matter of the Sun Throne, which there's currently no king or queen ruling Kyrene. While most of the high houses of Kyrene have pledged themselves to Rand, and if anything, they have offered to support Rand if he would like to make a claim for the Sun Throne, since he did technically conquer Kyrene, he has a right to it. But Rand also states that he intends to give both Kyrene and Camelin to Elaine because Elaine also technically has a claim to the Sun Throne. So he'll not only support her in taking the Lion Throne of Camelin, but also taking the Sun Throne of Kyrene. But for now, he's left Berylane in control alongside Ruark. They work hard to make sure that the Aiel and the Kyrenian don't clash with each other because there's still a lot of strong hatred between those two groups. Uh, while in Kyrene, Egwene is still recovering from the attack from Lanfear's attack. In the wake of the attack, she had begun experiencing these very strong migraines. Probably had something to do with her experience with Lanfear. So every time she attempts to dreamwalk, it leaves her. At first time, it left her in excruciating pain. She was getting like really powerful migraine headaches, and the wise ones and their dreamwalkers have been doing everything they can to help her recover. At one point, she does recover enough, and she begins traveling through. She begins her nightly travels through the dream world. Um, but for the most part, she focuses on her recovery and later training with the wise ones, and she also spends part of her time in Kyrene, assisting with the coming and goings of the state of affairs in the city. She also That's when she also learns that the White Tower's delegation had arrived, and she actually makes herself scarce because uh, she doesn't want the White Tower delegation to find her, because if they find, because thing is that Eleda had sent out a missive requiring Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve to all return to the White Tower. And any White Tower spies or informants, if they come across these girls, they're to immediately capture them and ship them off to the White Tower. So she can only imagine what would happen if the Aes Sedai from the White Tower find her.
Mhm.
But she does realize that the Aes Sedai from the White Tower are doing something strange. The estate that they've taken, that they're staying in, she notices that a large number of them are consistently channeling, but for what purpose she doesn't know. So she tries to spy on them, but in her spying, she actually comes across Elaine's brother, Gowan. The other brother, not Galad, who joined the White Cloaks, but Gowan.
Mhm.
So Gowan is Elaine's brother, full brother. He's also the son of Queen Morghese, and in the wake of Book 4, Gowan had become uh, the head of a small group of warders in training called the Younglings. The
Mhm.
Younglings, Gowan and his Younglings are acting as the honor guard for the White Tower's delegation, and they escorted them from the White Tower to Camelin. And it was there she runs into him, and the thing is that Egwene, when she was still in the White Tower, she had such a lady boner for Gowan, and as it turns out, while she was spying on him in his dreams, the feelings are reciprocated. She wasn't intentionally spying on his dreams. She learned the hard way that when it comes to dream walking, if she is when she's traveling through the dream world, there's like a space between the waking world and Teleran Riod, and this little space is where all the individual people's dreams can be found.
Mhm.
And while she was like moving through that space, uh, if you're a dream walker and there's somebody who is dreaming and they're dreaming about you, if that person has very strong emotions towards you, you
Mhm.
can actually be drawn into their dream, like pulled into their dream. So Gowan, who is as it turns out, he's madly in love with Egwene. He was dreaming about her, and she accidentally got sucked into his dream, and at first she's all like, "Oh fuck, I need to get out of here," and then she realized like how sweet his dreams of her are. She's like, "Fuck it, I could get used to this." And she ends up
I
making
gotta
herself
take it
comfortable in
here.
his. Yeah, like I got. Is he? My God,
My God.
stop. So yeah, that's the story of how Egwene got laid in a dream. I'm sorry, Egwene. That's the T.
A
But
tea.
anyway, Egwene doesn't tell Gawain that she has seen his dreams and knows exactly how he feels about her. But they begin meeting each other in secret. She convinces him not to tell the Aes Sedai that she's there because of the whole situation, and also because she doesn't want her training with the Wise Ones to be interrupted because she still has a lot to learn about being a Dream Walker, and there's nobody in the White Tower who would be able to train her. So the one thing is though, Gowan tries to convince her to at least leave and find somewhere safer to go because he believes that she's in danger being this close to Rand, and she's confused because she's like, well, Rand's the good guy, he's the Dragon Reborn, and he's like, that's exactly the point, and he also murdered my mother, Queen Morghese, and Egwene tells him that Rand wasn't the one who murdered his mom, but it was actually the Forsaken Raven. But Gowan isn't convinced, and he tells Egwene that for now he will take her at her word, but until she provides proof that Rand isn't the one who murdered his mom, he's going to take a shot at Rand if he gets the chance. So, but uh, he decides to put his intense hatred for Rand aside because he loves Egwene, and he promises her that he won't hurt Rand until she at least finds some way to prove that he didn't murder her mom.
Mm-hmm.
They also make a vow to each other that when time allows it, especially like when Egwene is elevated to the full rank of Aes Sedai, she'll take him on as her warder, and he basically promises that when that time is right, we're gonna get married. And it's just like, oh, it's so sweet. It's
Cute.
sickening. That's cute, but it just makes me want to hurl.
Uh,
Anyway, uh, dude. So the reason why this book is called The Lord of Chaos is because they insinuate that Rand himself is the Lord of Chaos. And the reason for this is because Rand believing that the only way that he can circumvent the numerous spies from the Dark Friends and other unsavory fellows, the only way that he can circumvent them and keep them from knowing his true intentions is by uh, maneuvering his forces in different places. Like now that Kyrene is under the control of Rand, and so is Camelin, uh, Rand now needs to set his focus on Ilion. Now, the reason why he wants to focus on Ilion is because Ilion is currently under the control of the Forsaken Samael. He found this out after his fight with Robin, and he now knows that the next best course of action is to take Ilion. So he begins maneuvering his forces from Tyr and Kyrene into position around Ilion, and he sends Matt down south to support those characters, to support his forces. It's around this time as well. Perrin decides to leave the Two Rivers and rejoin Rand. At this point, Perrin has been elevated to the status of Lord of the Two Rivers because after the efforts that he went through to drive the Trollocs and the White Cloaks out of the Two Rivers, the surviving villagers basically place him on that pedestal and now refer to him as Lord Perrin or Lord Perrin Golden Eyes. And as part of his new banners, they made a banner for him of a wolf, as well as some of the people of the Two Rivers have old Manetheren banners that they had kept and passed down through the generations. So they pull those banners out and basically declare the Two Rivers as the new state of Manetheren. And as well as being named Lord of the Two Rivers, Perrin got married to Fail, who, as many of you may remember, Fail was a hunter of the Horn, and she had joined Perrin in his journeys, and she had also followed Perrin to the Two Rivers to help him liberate his home.
mm-hmm.
And through their travels, they do become close. Thing about Fail is a Chaldean woman, so she is she's very strong-willed, kind of confrontational, but their relationship works out. At the end of book 4, they actually do end up getting married, and I should probably mention this. So Fail is not her real name. She took that name as her Hunter of the Horn name, so that way, like, if she finds the Horn of Valir and goes down in history,
Mm-hmm.
She would rather be remembered by the name Fail, which means falcon in the Old Tongue, rather than her real name. And her real name, especially now after marrying Perrin, is Zareen ni Bashir Tibara. She is the daughter of Lord Davram Bashir, the very man who pledged himself to Rand in Book 6.
Ooh.
So the thing is that she didn't tell Perrin much about her past life, but up until the point where they got married, and now not wanting to hide anything from each other. She tells him more about herself and the fact that she is a high lady and the daughter and the cousin to the Queen of Chaldea, and her father is the Lord General of the Chaldean army. So that in mind, they set out from the Two Rivers with a small force of Two River archers. The thing about the Two Rivers, even though they don't have like a formal military, they're they're very well known for having some of the best archers in all of Andor. So his small troop heads out from the Two Rivers and make their way to Camelin, where he makes contact with Ren and rejoins him and his forces. Uh, it's in Camelin that Perrin meets his in-laws, Davram Bashir, as well as his wife. Let me get her name real quick. I should know her name, but the thing is, she doesn't have much of a role in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. She's only like really aside from this one scene where he meets them both. Uncle of Queen Tenobia, father of Fail, Zareen, and Bashir Vara. Okay, Maydeen Bashir. Oh, hold on. No, that's not. That's his younger brother. I am so sorry. What the fuck? It doesn't even have his wife's name on here. The fuck? There. Just Google it. There we go. Jesus. It's Dira.
Dira?
Well, yeah, so her full name is Dira Nigalin to Bashir.
Mm-hmm.
So the two of them finally meet Perrin. Now, the thing about Dira is that Chaldean women are fierce, and because they are from a borderland nation, so the borderlands border the Blight, which come from Shile Gul.
Mm-hmm.
The societies in the borderlands are very warlike because they have a long history of battling creatures that come from the Blight. So that's the Trollocs, the Myrddraal, and any other foul creature that came out that basically come from Shile Gul, and try to push their way further south to spread the Blight and chaos and destruction. So the Chaldeans, just like the Shinerans, are very harsh and fierce people. They have high sense of honor, and forgetting her name already. Dira. Dira, when she first meets Perrin, she's very like standoffish. She's like, "So you think you have the balls to marry my daughter, huh?" And because like the way that the Chaldean women, they believe that they have to be tough and strong-willed in order to be viewed as equals to their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes Perrin, Perrin's relationship with Fail, it kind of seems like it comes across as maybe a little toxic because she's constantly, like she's ready to like start shit with him, but really like it comes from a cultural need to prove that they are equals to their husbands. So the only way they do that is by starting shit. The way they do that is by starting shit with their husbands.
Hey.
Like if they can't, if their husband, like to them, if their husband doesn't yell at them, then they must be doing something wrong.
Ooh.
So like anytime Perrin tries to like be placid and talk calmly to his wife, his Fael gets even more pissed off. Like, fuck, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I not good enough for you?
Damn.
Like, and so eventually Perrin realizes that's what he needs to do in order to make her happy. So he begins to stand up to her and like fight back. Anytime she starts shit, he'll like raise his voice at her, and that's when she's like, "Oh yes, I'm doing God's work. Like, I've done God's work now." But aside from his mother-in-law's confrontive nature, Bashir himself actually likes what he sees in Perrin, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Huh, good. We need some new blood in our family because it." The thing about noble families is that back in the day, even you know, noble families were more likely than not related to each other because they were
Mm-hmm.
constantly intermarrying. So like, even though they may like be like more or less set first or second cousins, they're still pretty well inbred. And while Bashir doesn't really like say it outright, he's like, it's good that we have some new blood because he feels like his family's bloodline has become weak due to the fact that they haven't brought any like new like something like they haven't brought anything new to diversify the gene pool. So that goes well. Rand makes a proposition to Perrin, asking him to uh, lead his forces down into Ilion to lead the assault against Samael. And at first, Perrin refuses because he feels his own Tavern abilities basically make him. It's not so much as the same kind of luck as uh, Matt, but his Tavern abilities make it to where he's always in the right place at the right time. So he feels like he has a strong need to be uh, around Rand. So if he leaves Rand now, things could go bad.
Mm.
So Rand accepts this. It's at this point that Rand is being approached almost daily by the Saladar Aes Sedai, the rebel Aes Sedai, asking for basically asking for his support, asking him to join the rebels against Eleda, help them retake the White Tower, basically doing everything they can to get Rand in their pocket. At one point, though, one of the rebel Aes Sedai was making her way through Camelin. She is assaulted by one of the Aiel men who was patrolling the city, and she survives and she's found and healed by her sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that they don't think to them they don't think it could have been a dark friend or it could have been a rogue Aiel, because there are Aiel that don't stand with Rand and they're working against him. But they make the assumption that all Aiel serve Rand and his purposes, so Rand must have sent the Aiel men to attack her. So this pisses them all off, and the seven sisters storm into his uh, council room, his throne room,
Mm-hmm.
and they confront him on the matter. They don't tell him like why they're confronting him. They're just saying they basically show up and start wagging their finger at him, like you need to start taking us seriously. We're not going to take any more disrespect from you, young man. And Rand's knows that he can't really stand against 8 sisters at once. At the most, he could stand against maybe 4 or 5 of them. But since there's 7 standing confronting him, he knows that he can't really fight them off with the power, and they could easily restrain him. But he manages to de-escalate the situation and tells them to fuck off. Like, I'm not your puppet, and I'm not going to do what I'm told. All right, if you want my support, then you need to play. You're going to be playing by my game, not yours. He sends them away after this, and Rand comes to realize that there are too many Aes Sedai, rogue Aes Sedai elements in Camelin, and leaving orders with Bashir and several other of the High Lords of Camelin. He gathers Perrin, Min, and his Aiel honor guard, and they all leave Camelin and he returns to Kyrene. Uh, I want to take a moment to point something out. While in Camelin, when Rand is dealing with the nobles of Camelin, he notices that the lords are looking at him would often look at him strangely, like almost as if they recognize him from somewhere. And he finally asks one of them, "Why? So why do you guys keep looking at me like this? It's almost as if you know me or something." and one of them tells him that like a he looks like the former daughter heir of Camelin, who had disappeared about 2 years before the Aiel Wars, and her name was Tigraine. Now, let's see here. So, the little thing about Tigraine, Tigraine Mentir was the only daughter of the previous queen of Andor, Mordrellin Mentir of Andor, and Tigraine is the mother, is the real mother of Galad Damodred. You know, the one who, Elaine's adopted brother, the one who joined the White Cloaks.
Yeah.
She tells him more about her, how she looked, and she states that you look just like her. Strange. Are you sure you're not? Are you sure you're not related to her? And he tells her flat out that the only thing he knows about his biological parents was that they were both Aiel, and his mother's name was Shael. But I will say this. The wise ones tell him that his mother, Shael, was not actually Aiel, but a wetlander. They had found her wandering into the Aiel wastes about 2 years before before the Aiel Wars. And she was very insistent that she needed to join the Aiel and become a Maiden of the Spear. At first, they didn't really want to take her, but the maidens, they liked her spark, so they agreed. They agreed to take her in, and she trained as a spear maiden, and she actually became a very skilled warrior. And it was when the Aiel War broke out that she also insisted on joining the fight. So she joined the fight, and during the war she got pregnant, and Rand's father was a clan leader by the name of Jonduin. And the thing is, she got pregnant and she died at the base of the Dragon Mount, just outside of Tar Valon, and she died giving birth to Rand. So it hasn't been officially confirmed that Tigraine Mentir and Shael are the same women, but series of events that have led to Tigraine's disappearance and Shael's appearance in the Aiel Waste are more than coincidental. It's implied that it's more than coincidental. So, of course, if you want spoilers, you're more than welcome to Google it. But it is highly implied that Rand is the son of the former daughter heir of Andor, and he is probably the half brother of Galad Damodred. Even now, I'm on book 9, and I haven't actually confirmed 100% that Tigraine is his mother, but
you strongly think
I strongly think, and by my own research, I need to actually figure out where in the story they do confirm it, but I think this is pretty much the only confirmation we get for now. And yeah, he is technically royalty. So while Rand himself can't really claim the Andoran throne because he's a man, he does have royal blood.
Yeah.
But anyway, he returns to Cairhien, and it is there that he begins to be pestered by the Aes Sedai there. This time, he's just not taking their shit. After what happened with the Saladar Aes Sedai, he's just he doesn't really take the Aes Sedai from the White Tower seriously, and this gets on their nerves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it does lead up to some. It does cause problems for him. Now, before I get into that, I want to go ahead and talk about some of the other stories that go on throughout the book. Let's see here. So, the reason why Rand decides to begins asking Perrin to take his forces to Ilion and join the forces he has set ready to invade Ilion is because he had diverted Matt, who had been slowly making his way south with his band.
Hmm.
They've been slowly making their way south to join the forces at Ilion, but after a while, Rand shows up and orders Matt to go to Saladar because he needs Elaine to take her place on the Lion Throne. And since he figured out where Saladar is, the way he figured it out was so Rand will physically enter the dream world from time to time to escape and to kind of have some alone time. And he accidentally came across Egwene when she was meeting with the sisters from Saladar. And this particular meeting, the sisters from Saladar had come to a decision regarding Egwene. So when they met with Egwene and the Wise Ones in Teleran-Riod, they told Egwene that they need her to return. That they're basically calling her out, telling her she needs to come to. They're ordering her to Saladar
Mm-hmm.
to face the Rebel Aes Sedai's hall and their sitters. And Egwene is freaking out by this because she doesn't know because she knows that by impersonating a full-fledged sister of the Aes Sedai,
Mm-hmm.
there are going to be consequences to that, and she thinks, oh crap, they found out and they're going to punish her for it. But she accepts their summons and she leaves. She herself leaves Kyrene. And the thing is, the Wise Ones were amicable to her leaving because they know they know Egwene has her own duties with the Aes Sedai. Although some of them do want her to become a full Wise One, especially this really old and decrepit Wise One by the name of Cerelia.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, let me tell you something. Cerelia is something else. Alright. She's that tough, no-nonsense old woman.
Ooh.
Age does not slow that bitch down. And thing is, she is a channeler, and very weak channeler, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, her strength and the power does not take away from the fact that she herself is over 500 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So channelers can live for a very, very long time. The average Aes Sedai lives to be a little over 300 years, but a lot of the non-Aes Sedai channelers have been known to live for over 400 to 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's implied that a channeler can live even longer. But anyway, thing is, before she leaves, Egwene reveals to the Wise Ones that she herself is not a full Aes Sedai sister. She's just an accepted. And she does this because she had, despite being an apprentice to the Wise Ones, and the training was harsh, she had come to respect and rely on the Wise Ones, and they have come to respect her and accept her as one of their own. So she decided she can't really lie to them anymore. So she tells them, and adhering to their code of honor, she accepts their toll, which is basically she will do whatever they deem necessary to make up for her lie. And the Wise Ones come to this decision by the ones who had directly interacted with Egwene and come to personally befriend her. They all gathered and they switched her
Hmm.
So they took a wooden stick and they spanked the fuck out of her.
Damn.
Yeah, but she accepted it because she wanted to prove to them that she is trustworthy and she wants to make amends with them. And well, along the Aiel, that's pretty much how they do it. And once they were done, they all were all like, "All right, all is forgiven," and they partied.
Mm.
They got and they partied by getting lit, wasted. As they got wasted, they were partying and all that. The thing is, though, the wise one who personally trained Egwene she basically had to cut Egwene off because one of the stipulations for Egwene training under her was that she had to obey Amos's every rule. And one of the rules that Amos had placed on Egwene was to never enter Tel'aran'rhiod physically.
Hmm.
But the thing is that Egwene, even though Rand had rediscovered the lost weave of traveling, he only knows she can't really learn how to travel from him because the whole men and women can't see each other's weaves. She can't see the weave that Rand was able to use to travel, and the way that they travel is different. The concepts behind it are different. So whereas Rand, the way he describes it is that he bores a hole through the pattern to to the destination that he is intending to go. But the way that a woman travels is very different. It's the result's the same, but the process is wholly different.
Hmm.
But she figured out on her own how to open a gateway into Tel'aran'rhiod to enter it physically,
Hmm.
and that's how she decided. That's how she was going to get from Kyrene to Saladar, which is almost 1,000 miles away.
Mm.
So, um, when she tells the wise ones that's how she's going to leave, that's how she's going to get there. Amos tells her that I will no longer train you. From this point on, I will not instruct you. Because there was a possibility of Amos continuing her instructions just through the dream world totally, not in person. But since Egwene has chosen to do that, Amos refuses to teach her any further,
Hmm.
which is upsetting to Egwene, but she accepts her decision anyway. Uh, and after they say their goodbyes, Egwene opens the portal into Tel'aran'rhiod. When she enters it, she finds that she's able to cross the distance almost instantaneously. Basically, like one step carries her hundreds of miles. Pretty much how like you can, you know, you can warp the very fabric of reality in Tel'aran'rhiod just with a thought. So she uses this to her advantage, and she travels in just a few minutes from Kyrene to Saladar. And when she gets there, um, she presents herself to the Hall of Sitters for the rebels, and the Sitters announce that they want her to become the Amerlin seat of the rebel Aes Sedai.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a step back because um, it's at this point I want to point out how much these girls are leveling up. So so while Egwene is continuing her training with the Wise Ones, Elaine and Nynaeve are both continuing their training in
Hmm.
Saladar. And as they're and the thing is, they have a little added advantage, because disguised among the rebel Aes Sedai as a servant is Moghedien. Now, if y'all remember from what happened in the last book, Moghedien was captured by Nynaeve, and they had successfully placed an Adam that Elaine had figured out how to make on her own.
Hmm.
After studying a Shan made Adam, so the Shan made Adams are like a pair of segmented loops. There's a bracelet, and then there's the collar itself, and then connecting these two is a silver leash. So, of course, when you place the collar around a channeler, the collar restricts the channeler's ability to use their power, and the person wearing the bracelet has total control over the channeler and their ability to channel. So if the person wearing the collar wants the channeler to shoot a fireball, then the channeler feels this strong urge to shoot a fireball and create whatever weave that the person wearing the bracelet wants. And Elaine, after studying this ADAM, the Shanshan's version of the ADAM, realizes that the silver leash itself is not really necessary because the ADAM works like similarly to the way a female channelers can link with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So when a female channeler wants to increase their power, like when a bunch of women want to increase the power of their weaves, they can reach out and connect to another woman, and when they do this, they increase their own power by drawing the power from the source through that other woman,
Okay.
and they're able to link with as many as 13 individuals, with one individual leading the link. So the person who's in control of the link is the one that directs the flow of energy into the more powerful weaves. So the ADAM works very similar. Of course, the person wearing the bracelet has to be a channeler, or at least has to have the ability to channel.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the person wearing the collar has to be a channeler themselves. So Elaine realizes that the bracelet works pretty much like that. It creates a link between the holder of the bracelet and the one being collared, but it's more parasitic rather than mutual. All right. It creates an involuntary link rather than the mutual voluntary link that is naturally created by female channelers. So, studying it more, she figures out how to make one of her own, and she is celebrated by the other Aes Sedai as the first woman in the first Aes Sedai to make a ter'angreal in over 1,000 years.
Damn.
So she's given a lot of props for that. Nynaeve is also given a lot of props because she's learned the both of them have learned a bunch of new types of weaves because they're forcing Moghedien to teach them the highly complicated and advanced weaves that she possesses from the Age of Legend. Now, Moghedien tries to she obeys them and teaches them what they ask her to teach them. Moghedien teaches them how to create more complex illusions. She also shows them how to invert their weaves, so if they ever want to hide themselves or keep other channelers from sensing their weaves, like inverting their weave, inverting weave advantage. Both girls were given, because of their accomplishments, they're given a lot more leeway, and the Little Tower, which is what the rebels call their hall of leadership, they more leeway to study and they give them access to more resources when they ask. So for starters, Elaine already proven herself to be being capable of creating new ter'angreal. She begins to study the ter'angreal that they are in their person, including the stone ring that allows them to dreamwalk, and it showed how to create more of them. Now, her copies are not as perfect as the original one because there are certain elements in the original one that she's not yet able to replicate. So while her copies that she made, they work and allow a person to dreamwalk when using them, it's not perfect. So whenever the individual appears in the dream world, they look kind of ethereal and not fully present in the dream world. But still, she's given a lot of props, and they praise her for her accomplishments. Nynaeve, because she is presented with 3 channelers who have been severed. She asks the hall to allow her to study these people because in the history of the Aes Sedai, there have only been a small number of people who have been severed, who have been stilled. And of course, there's the untold number of male channelers that have been gentled over the history, over the last 3,000 years. But in that time frame, not a single person had taken the time to study it. What effects on a channeler right? Like what exactly happens to your body when you're severed? All right, because the thing is that severing is such a like a lot of people fear it. It's like it's a very taboo subject. All right, so whenever somebody's severed, everyone else kind of ignores them and doesn't really want anything to do with them because they themselves fear like, oh god, that could happen to us, and they don't really want to like if I don't see you, you don't exist. It's that kind of mentality, right? So Nynaeve convinces the little tower to allow her to study Suan and Leanne, who have both joined the rebels, as well as Logain, who has also joined the. Well, join is a strong word. He's really just there. He doesn't really do anything because he's beginning to suffer from the long-term effects of gentling, which is like an extreme form of depression. Because thing is, when a person is severed, when a channeler is severed, it's like a drug addict being cut off from their fix, cold turkey. But whereas a drug addict has the chance to recover more or less, the channelers, unless a channeler is given something like some sort of purpose or duty or some sort of or something to occupy them and keep them focused, like give them a new purpose in life, they'll begin to waste away, and in more cases than not, and trigger warning, they often take their lives. So Logain, having not much to do in the rebel camp, has been slowly slipping into like a deeper depression. And she began. It's during one of her sessions with him while she's studying him. She's using her own form of healing weaves because, as it turns out, Nynaeve is such a gifted healer that she uses different and more complex healing weaves, whereas the rest of the Aes Sedai use just one. They actually only use one healing weave, which is a weave of like water, air, and spirit, or something like that. Which is like that kind of that healing weave is like a cure-all. They use that, and it basically it's in D&D terms, it's like greater restoration. It restores you to full health, but at the cost of like both you and the patient get like take like maybe like 1 or 2 points of exhaustion. So like it's a costly weave, but Nynaeve had begun figuring out how to use other weaves that are less costly to both her and the person she's healing. And while she's studying Logain, she notices that there's like a part of him, a part that she believes is what connected him to the source, and she can tell that she could tell it feels like a severed limb. The way she describes it, it feels like a severed limb, which is why she realizes like so that's pretty much explains the whole concept of being permanently cut off from the source. And while she's studying this it's like a hole, the way she describes it. While she's studying it, she's like, okay, well, if it's like a severed limb, and maybe a weave of fire and spirit to reconnect it, and it's like a light bulb just suddenly switched back on in Logain. And without fully intending it, Nynaeve accidentally discovered a way to restore a person's ability to channel after they've been severed. And Logain gets his power back in full force. And when she realizes this, she starts freaking out, and she immediately weaves a shield around him to keep him from channeling. Now Logain, he's shocked when he realizes that he can channel again, but while he like reaches for the source while being channeled, Nynaeve describes it as like she can feel something in him flexing, like almost as if someone using a muscle that hasn't been used in a while. And for her, like, the thing is, Logain is despite Nynaeve's own incredible strength with the true source, Logain is much more powerful than her, so she's not able to shield him for very long. She immediately sends Elaine to go get the sitters, mainly Sheriam and the other leaders of the rebels, and tells them to like come quick because I fucked up. I fucked up. He can channel again.
I'm in danger.
I'm in danger. So like the thing is though, she tried to tell Elaine to like quietly go get the other sisters because she doesn't want the whole camp to know that Logain can channel again. But
Yeah.
Elaine, who was freaking out, comes running in, screaming and shouting, "He can channel! He can channel! She did it!" So, so not just the leaders of the rebels, but like a whole group of Aes Sedai, like pretty much almost every Aes Sedai in the camp show up to where Logain was being held, and they look at Nynaeve and it's like, so what's the deal? They see the shield that she has around him. They're like, what's the deal? And she tells them, I healed him, and he can channel again. And they're like in shock and disbelief, and she's like, what? No. They're like, what? No, it's impossible. You can't heal a gentle man. It's what's done is done. It's permanent. And she's like, no, really, he can channel. That's why I'm shielding him. I healed him. I really did. And so one of the sisters convinces Sheriam and the other leaders that maybe we should listen to the girl. I mean, she wouldn't be causing this kind of fuss for nothing. So they have 6 other sisters take over the shield of on Logain, and they usher Nynaeve back to the little tower. And it's there. They begin to berate her and basically doing everything they can to piss her off, because still at this point the only way she can channel is if she's really upset and angry. So they start berating her, and at first she's confused, like, why are y'all talking mad shit at me? The fuck? She realizes that they want her to get mad enough to channel. And while they're doing this, another one of the sisters bring both Suan and Leanne into the room, and they finally drop. And when she sees them, that's when it clicks. Like, oh, they want me to show them that she did it, and they did. And they tell her, like, we want. All right, if you can actually heal severing, do it again. I bet you can't do it twice. And Nynaeve looks at Suan and looks back at them. She's like, bet. She gets pissed off enough that she walks right up to Suan, who also began talking mad shit, because she's like, don't get my hopes up. I've been stilled. That's it. Done and done. All right, don't be a stupid little girl. And Nynaeve's like, all right, bet. She grabs Suan and uses the same weave of fire and spirit and restores Suan's ability to channel. And Suan is understandably shocked. The other Aes Sedai, having seen the weave that Nynaeve uses, they all are like, what the fuck? And they can see immediately Suan begins to channel again, and they're all like, oh my god, she did it. Yeah. She did it. And immediately Leanne steps forward and she's like, heal me, give me my power back, please, 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 please. So she does the same. She's like, all right, I'm gonna do it a third time, and she does it again. This time, the sisters from the Yellow Aja watch her closely, and they're all like, wait a second, you're using weaves other than the water, spirit, and air healing weave? Like, how are you doing that with all, like, you're using fire and spirit, and you're also using, like, earth and air? Like, what?
Right?
Like, wait, you can do that? No. So Nynaeve ends up spending pretty much the better part of the next week showing the members of the Yellow Aja the same weaves over and over again, and the different healing weaves that she had been using. And this annoys her, but at the same time she puts up with it, because, like, all right, well, I just did something that, as far as we know, has never been done before, not even in the Age of Legends. So she puts up with it, and then eventually, now we pretty much come back to Egwene. So our 2 girls here had leveled up a lot, because one had figured out how to make ter'angreal again, and because of her experience working with the Athan Mir Windfinders, Elaine is also has also become a very talented Windfinder herself. She didn't have much training with them, but she now knows how to manipulate the weather to a considerable degree. And Nynaeve now has the ability to heal gentling and stilling. And then Egwene shows up. The little tower announces that they want her to become the next Amyrlin seat, and Egwene is like, what the fuck? I'm
Right.
still an accepted. Like, I'm still an accepted. And they tell her, well, we need somebody who's strong, and we also need somebody like with the kind of experience that you have. Because although many of us have more experience, you've done things that no one else has done. And it also helps that she's the first Dreamwalker that the White Tower has seen in over 300 years. All right. They wanted her because she's naturally strong in the power. The only one who can match her power is who can rival her power is Elaine, and the only one who can exceed her power is Nynaeve.
Yeah.
But Nynaeve, the thing is, those two, like Nynaeve, still can't really channel at will, and Elaine is destined to be destined to be queen of Camelin, so she's not a candidate either. So that leaves Egwene. And since she has experience with the wise ones, this also gives her an advantage as well. But really, the little tower was looking for a scapegoat. They
Mm.
wanted somebody that they can easily control. But either way, Egwene accepts, and they elevate her to the status of Amerlin's seat of the Rebel Aes Sedai. I gotta say though, the ceremony for raising a sister to the Amerlin's seat is kind of interesting.
Mm.
Um, like even the other Aes Sedai, they think that this ceremony is kind of archaic, but they keep up with it because, well, it's tradition. So part of it of the ascension ceremony is the the sister with basically the sister that is chosen to oversee the ascension ceremony
Mm.
has to ensure that every woman present, including the candidate for the Amerlin seat, is a woman. And the way they all do that is they all strip off their blouses and just put their titties on display. And when I read that part, I'm like, okay,
Kitty?
so it's titties. It's just like it comes from like an old tradition from like over 1,000 years ago when the Aes Sedai like had been reduced to like these small like feudal sects before they came together and built the White Tower and
Mm.
established the White Tower. So the Amerlin seat just what like by exposing their breasts is supposed to like is supposed to uh was their way of confirming that that the only people who are present are women, and all that. Right? There's if you want the full details, just read the book because I was like, okay, we got titties on full display, and the person overseeing the ascension ceremony will go up to each woman and basically just stare at her like.
Uh-huh.
That's a woman. Goes next. That's a woman. And then once that's done, they all every sitter in the hall confirms their assent that this woman is that the candidate is a woman and that she is the one they want to lead them. And even though Egwene does bring up the fact that she's still an accepted, but they said, we've elevated accepted to the Amerlin seat before if they've proven themselves to be powerful enough. And since Elaine and Egwene and Nynaeve are three of the most powerful channelers that the White Tower has seen in over 1,000 years, it really wouldn't be that much of an issue because uh, before them, the last Aes Sedai that had shown up in the tower with an incredible amount of power was a woman named Cadsuane. And Cadsuane, she is a close second to Elaine and Egwene in power scale. But since before they came along, she was the most powerful channeler that the White Tower had ever seen. And she had become a full-fledged Aes Sedai in less than 6 years. And by this point, our three girls had only been in the tower for less than 2. And already they have more experience than any of the novices or accepted. Like hell, within it, they became accepted. Like Nynaeve was made an accepted right off the bat because of her own experiences so far. While Nynaeve I'm sorry, while Egwene and Elaine, they were novices, but only for maybe less than 6 months to a year, like less than a year before they were raised to accepted. So they became full-fledged sisters in less than 2 years of joining the White Tower. And yes, uh, after Elaine is elevated to the striped stole, which is a like a sash
Mm-hmm.
that has all the colors of the Ajas. Um, After she's elevated to the stole, she makes a proclamation that several accepted among the rebels are to be immediately elevated to full sisterhood. Two of them were accepted that had already completed their training and were ready to take the test to become Aes Sedai. The other two was Elaine and Nynaeve. So she makes those two full sisters. Elaine chooses to join the Green Aja,
Mm-hmm.
and Nynaeve, of course, chooses the Yellow Aja. And the Yellow Aja, being the healers and stuff, she wants to join them. Uh, this is a little controversial, but everyone accepts it because one, she's the Amerlin seat, and usually when the Amerlin seat is chosen, a new Amerlin seat is chosen, they're free to make proclamations like that. And also, she declares that the rebels are to begin their march on the White Tower. So she basically has everyone pack up their shit, begin their march towards the White Tower. And by this point, Gareth Bryn had already built up a sizable force of like a little over 10,000 soldiers to fight for them. And they're getting more recruits every day, even when they start marching. Um, before they begin, however,
Mm-hmm.
hang on a second. Before they begin their march, uh, the girls have become concerned with the matter of the weather, because throughout this book, everyone begins to notice that they are entering the mid-autumn months,
Mm-hmm.
and usually by this time, the weather begins to become more mild and cool, and the season is changing to winter. But it still feels like it's the dead center of summer. There's no clouds, there hasn't been rain in months, everything is dry, and it's hot as fuck. And they realize that this is the Dark One's work, because the Dark One has affected the weather before. So the last time, he had kept the weather in a almost perpetual winter, so everything was cold and snow and ice everywhere. But then after the first confrontation with the Forsaken, that spell was broken and the weather returned to normal.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, they believed that the Dark One had enough strength to permanently lock the season into summer. So they realize they need to figure something out. What are they
Yeah,
going to do?
exactly.
Like they need to figure out a way to fix the weather. And Elaine suggests maybe getting the help of the Athen Mirror because they're powerful weather workers, but they figure they need something much stronger than typical weather working. Um, so the girls come up with the idea that they figured out where they need to go by going into the dream world, because the dream world, if your need is strong enough, it'll take you to where that to the thing you need most. It may not be what you expect, but it'll certainly give them answers, even if it creates more questions in the process. So using this ability, the girls go into the dream. Elaine and Nynaeve go into the dream world, and using their intense need, the dream world takes them to a city along the southern coast, city of Ebu Dar, and they appear in this old, dusty storeroom. And after looking around a bit, the girls realize that the storeroom is filled with strange artifacts, and they realize, wait a second, are these ter'angreal? It's hard to tell because they're in the dream world, but they know
Yeah.
that since these objects have been sitting in this one place for a long time, they have appeared in the dream world, because anything that has a somewhat more or less permanent place in the real world will appear in the dream world. So buildings, trees, um, mountains, things like that. Since it sits there for long periods of times, it'll stay in place in the dream world. But anything that is constantly being moved around, people, papers, anything like that, they don't really appear in the dream world unless they sit in one place for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And while looking through the storeroom, the girls find a large bowl. And inside the bowl is engravings of like images of clouds and various scenes of different weather phenomenon. And while looking at it, Elaine realizes that this might be a ter'angreal that allows you to control the weather. Like some sort of weather bowl. Um, After like looking around a bit, they realize that they must be in the city of Abu Dar, and uh, and that if they're going to fix the weather, that they need to find this bowl. So going to Egwene with their plan, they tell her they need to go to Abu Dar to try to find this ter'angreal. There's already a delegation of rebel sisters in Abu Dar, so Elaine tells them, "All right, we're gonna you'll go join those sisters there." Um, as at this point, also not long after Egwene has made the Amerlin seat, that Nynaeve and Elaine decide to tell her that they have Moghedien as a captive, and she's currently bound by an Adam. So Elaine is shocked at first. Egwene is shocked at first because they have a fucking Forsaken in their rebel camp. So that's a ballsy move.
Yeah.
But she gives the girls the benefit of the doubt because, like, the other thing that's shocking for her is that they're using an Adam on her. And with Egwene's own personal experience being bound by an Adam, she's not entirely happy with it. But after meeting Moghedien and seeing the Adam on her on her neck in person, she realizes that she quickly agrees with the girls that, all right, we could use this to our advantage. And uh, she begins asking Moghedien's questions of like different weaves that she could be taught, that she could teach her. And Moghedien is like, "Oh yes, of course, yes, yes," but trying to like suck up to her. And uh, Egwene like hints at, "What do you know about traveling?" And thing is, Moghedien, even though she's bound by the collar, she can still lie to an extent. But she's often what she's done with Elaine and Nynaeve is just misdirect them. So
Yeah.
she'll teach them like a few good things here and there, but any other things that, like, any other like weaves that would give these girls an advantage, she would like either just flat out say like, "Oh, that's beyond my abilities," or "No, I don't really know that. I didn't really know that because I wasn't like that kind of channeler."
Yeah.
And uh, but she realizes that Egwene was hinting at possibility. Egwene asks her, "Is it possible to to move from two places, like travel long distances?" And Moghedien uh, says, "Yes, it's possible." Answers some questions, answer a few more of her questions, like how it's possible to travel, like from one place to another. And she tells Egwene, "I could teach you the weaves," and Egwene's like, "No need. I figured it out." Because Egwene realized that in order for a woman to be able to use a traveling weave, uh, the travel weave is very similar to the weave she used to open the gateway into Tel'aran'rhiod.
Mm-hmm.
And she realizes that unlike men who have to bore a hole through the pattern to get from one place to the other, women have to uh, okay, cut this part out. I gotta like look at it again, but it's something to do with like connecting.
Hmm. Interesting.
Okay. Travel is also related to skimming. It's some sort of a slower way to travel. Not previous no method, but not using one power. Traveling is considered the strategically most important useful weaves discovered at the end of the Third Age. Blah blah. Let's see. So traveling is done through the use of gateways. They initially appear as a thin vertical line in the air, which then expands into a rectangular portal. One cannot create a gateway within a gateway. If two gateways are created in the same location, the second gateway will open besides the first, with a small gap between the two. Uh, okay. Male channelers describe the forming of a gateway with sight-in as boring a hole in the pattern to the
Mm-hmm.
channeler's destination.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, forming a gateway with side-R is done by creating a similarity in the pattern when stepping through the gateway to the channeler's destination. So basically, one punches a hole through reality, the other one creates like a space with like this makes the destination and the point of origin the same, like
Yeah.
connecting them
Yeah.
by linking the two spaces and just walking through it. Okay. Like that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Anyway, so because Egwene had figured out how to make the traveling weave through her experience of using uh, the dream world as a method of fast traveling.
Mm-hmm.
She then from there she then proceeds to share this her newly discovered weave with the others. Uh, okay, sorry, I just got a text. There were supposed to be some contractors coming today, and looks like they were scheduled. All right, whatever. I don't care. Uh, what was I saying? God damn it! That threw me off so fucking much. So Egwene teaches the other Aes Sedai how to travel,
Yep.
and she's given mad props. Like, okay, like these three girls, man, they're rediscovering new shit. They're discovering new shit. One can make Terangrial, the other one can heal Severing, and the other one can make gateways.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that Egwene credits Moghedien with teaching her is the weaves for skimming, because as I said, it's the in order to instantaneously travel from point A to B, you not only have to know your destination but your point of origin.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're in an unfamiliar area, you can't create a gateway to instantaneously travel. But what Moghedien shows her is the weaves for skimming, which allows you to leave from your point of origin without really knowing it very well
Mm-hmm.
or being very familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it's a much slower method of travel. You open the gateway, and it's this black void, and like this empty space. When you step through it, you have to create like a platform. But
Mm-hmm.
since it's like basic, it's implied that this void is like outside of reality, kind of similar to Teleran Riod. So any your thoughts become reality here. So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta think like you have to create like a platform for yourself to stand on, And um, so when you do that, you can either create one big enough just for yourself or for yourself and a few passengers. Rand has created one big enough to carry like almost 500 Aiel soldiers. But anyway, when you enter it, uh, you basically become you enter this void on your platform, and when you close the gateway behind you, the platform will move. Basically, it's implied it's moving in the direction of your intent of your destination.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Even though there's no real concept of direction in this void, but once you reach it, it takes like a few minutes to reach it. Once you're there, you open another gateway, and boom, you're at your destination.
Ooh.
And so she teaches this weave to the other sisters, at least the ones who are powerful enough to make gaze. She uses one gateway to send Nynaeve and Elaine, as well as another small contingent of other ambassadors, uh, to Abu Dar. But before that happens, it's at this point Rand had finally discovered where Saladar is because he didn't know where it was. He actually found out by accident when he was in Teleran Riot himself, and he saw the meeting between Egwene, the Wise Ones, and the sisters from Saladar. And when he overhears them saying that she needs to come to Saladar, he figures out where it is, and he goes to Matt and he orders him to go to Saladar and to get Elaine and take her back to Camelin. So Matt, along with his whole band of the Red Hands, they head to Saladar. Rand takes them there through Gateway, and they approach Egwene. And the thing is that when Matt meets with Egwene, he doesn't realize that she's the new Amerlin seat, and Nynaeve and and Elaine are also there.
Mm-hmm.
So when he starts telling them, like, all right, y'all are coming with me whether you like it or not, and he tries to like manhandle her, the girls get pissed and they try to like restrain him with the power, but it's then that they realize that they can't touch him with the power, because when he made that deal with the Elfin, he got a medallion that's a Terangrial, and the medallion prevents channelers from touching him with the power. So anytime a weave gets close to him, anytime anyone tries to direct their weaves at him, the weave will vanish just before will just vanish just before it hits him, and he notices that the Foxhead medallion will begin to will turn to ice whenever, like, it basically turns ice cold when weaves are directed right at him, or if somebody's channeling in his presence, it starts to chill. So he notices that they're channeling at him, and he's kind of satisfied that they can't touch him. But the girls compose themselves quickly, and they tell him that they're not going anywhere with him, and two, he needs to be careful who he's talking to, because he's talking to the Amerlin seat herself. And it's at that point he realizes, oh shit, she really is the Amerlin seat, and Elaine and Nynaeve are both full Aes Sedai now. And they tell him that they're not going anywhere with him, at least not yet. Egwene has her own business dealing with the White Tower, and Nynaeve and Elaine have business in Abu Dar.
Yeah.
And while he's not happy about it, he tells them, all right, I'm going with you. I'm going with Elaine and Nynaeve to Abu Dar, at least just to keep him out of trouble until he can get Elaine. I keep calling Elaine Egwene and Egwene Elaine.
Yeah, you get.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it got me fucked up. You got two E's here, Elaine and Egwene. I mean, when you think about it, like, they basically sound the same too.
Yeah, they
Egwene, Elaine. So I'm like getting the two confused. Okay, so Matt is going with Elaine and Nynaeve to Abu Dar to keep him out of trouble, and to, as soon as they're done with their business there, he's going to drag them back to Camelin.
Yeah.
And they hint that they're not going to let that happen, but they tell him, like, that's not going to happen. If we go to Camelin, it's going to be on our time. But anyway, they take a gateway. They take a gateway to Abu Dar, and their story pretty much ends here. They join up with the Aes Sedai that are already in Abu Dar, and they begin their own search of the city for that storeroom with the Bowl of the Winds, which is what it's called, or the Weather Bowl. And the story pretty much ends here. In book 7, that is when their search for the bowl continues, and they will eventually find it. But spoiler alert, I'm just gonna tell you guys right here. Don't get your hopes up for the Bowl of the Winds, at least not until book 8, because that's when, like, by that point they've found it, and that's when they're gonna use it. But like when I was reading book 7, I'll tell you what, when the book ended and they found it by the end of book 7, spoiler alert, but they don't use it yet, and the book ends, and I was so mad. I'm like, God damn it! Wow. Like, they spent the whole book looking for it, and then they found it, and what did they do? Nothing.
Nothing.
And then book 8 happens, and they use it like right at the beginning, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank you, Jesus. Make me wait another book, I swear to God. So anyway, when the girls head to Abu Dar, they have to deal with their own problems with the other sisters of the Aes Sedai, because even though Egwene made Nynaeve and Elaine full sisters, the other sisters have a hard time believing that, because since they're both like so very green and very new, that they have a hard time believing that the girls are full-fledged Aes Sedai, and they end up dealing with that for the rest of the book. And the story with them pretty much ends. They leave for they head to Evidar. Matt's with them. Matt leaves most of his band behind to follow Elaine as they travel north to the White Tower. That will encompass pretty much, that trip pretty much encompasses all of book 7. And Moghedien, towards the end of this book, at this point Egwene had already ordered the rebels to begin their march north. They were just about to reach, I'd say they were about halfway to the border with Andor, when Egwene encounters a problem with Moghedien. So there are several black sisters hiding among the rebels, and one of them comes under the command of a mysterious woman who calls herself Arangar. Now, this woman in public is known as Halima, and she becomes the Black Sister. She acts as the Black Sister's like maid, assistant, secretary, kind of takes on that role. But Halima approaches Moghedien because she immediately knows that that's who Moghedien is, even though Moghedien has a disguise on her, a disguising weave on her. She approaches Moghedien and she tells Moghedien that she's here to help her, but that Moghedien had been summoned to Shile Gul by the Dark One. And she tells Moghedien that if I let you free, will you go? And Moghedien, all too willing to get the fuck out of there, immediately says yes. And Halima uses the power to unlock the Adam, but Moghedien notices that when she touches the Adam with her power, Halima flinches and kind of gasps in pain when she does this. And Moghedien, who had been studying the Adam secret on her own, realized that an Adam can only be touched by a female channeler, and if a male tries to, it causes them pain. So, for whatever reason, and she also realizes that she can't see Halima's weaves either, but she knows that the woman was channeling. So she's like, something's up, but that's a problem for later.
Yeah, there's some bullshit afoot.
Yeah, so Halima frees Moghedien from the Adam, and Moghedien immediately opens a gateway and skims to Shile Gul. The thing is, as soon as Halima touched the Adam, Egwene, who was wearing the bracelet for the connected bracelet at the time, immediately sensed that a male channeler had touched the Adam, and she also felt it when Moghedien had escaped. Now the thing is that only Egwene, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Suan and Leanne knew that Moghedien was their captive. No one else knew that she was there. All they knew is that this woman was a refugee that they took in, and who's been acting as a scullery maid. So Elaine, who she was in the middle of a meeting, quietly excuses herself and goes to Moghedien's tent, and she finds the only thing she finds there is the collar, and Moghedien is long gone.
Mm.
So that's an issue she has to deal with. Another thing Egwene does is while they are traveling, she realizes that the sisters have to continuously shield Logain to keep him from channeling. And she realizes that will cause a problem in the future because many of the sisters are thinking that they should just go ahead and gentle him again. But that will cause even more problems because since Rand had declared amnesty for all male channelers, including former false dragons.
Yeah.
If they gentle Logain or just flat out kill him because several of Egwene's rivals in the Little Tower hinted that they should just kill him outright.
That would cause a shit ton of problems.
Yeah, because they want to get Rand on their side. I mean, they still, to some extent, want to get him under their thumb. Egwene recognizes that if they do anything to Logain and Rand finds out about it, this could create this could do irreparable damage. So
yeah.
she questions Logain, and she gets him to admit that he wants to go and join Rand and accept his amnesty. So she's like, all right. She leaves and she has Suan arrange for Logain to escape, and he does. And we won't see Logain again, at least not until sometime in book 8. But Logain escapes and he goes and joins the shaman. So here's where things get interesting.
No.
So not long after we're going back to Rand now. Not long after Rand left Caemlyn after that little spat he had with the rebel sisters, he returns to Cairhien and takes up his leadership roles there again, and he begins to get immediately gets heckled by the White Tower delegation, and he doesn't take them seriously. He basically just kind of plays around with them. And the thing is, though, this is where I think he fucked up. Instead of taking the White Tower delegation seriously, he kind of let his arrogance get in the way. And because of this, when the sisters choose to come and speak with him again, he tells them only about 3 sisters can come and see him at a time. And the 3 sisters show up, but they also bring with them about 10 servants, or what look to be servants in disguise. So what the White Tower had done was that they had snuck young members of their order, so like accepted and sisters who had only recently became sisters, and so they're still young enough. Basically, sisters who are still young enough to where they have yet to assume the Aes Sedai ageless face. So, because an Aes Sedai can be easily recognized by how ageless their face looks, but yet how like serious and experienced the look in their eyes, the look that they have in their eyes.
Yeah.
So you could spot an Aes Sedai just by looking at their face, and they knew Rand could do this, so they snuck in uh, several of their younger accepted and younger sisters who wouldn't immediately be recognizable as Aes Sedai. And while Rand was talking to them, he senses them beginning to channel, and they quickly, all 13 sisters, shield him and restrain him with the power. And from there, they uh, they stuff him into a trunk and spirit him out of Kyrene. At the same time, Min was also there with him, and they capture her as well because the Aes Sedai, they view Min as an oddity because she has the ability to see images of the pattern. So when she looks at a person, sometimes she'll see images float around them, either little sparks of color or actual images of, and she can interpret these images as what's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not always clear, but it's still something that is a remarkable ability. And um, Rand comes to rely on her and her ability, and though he tells her he will never force her to use her power because it can be stressful when the things that she sees can be stressful uh, and traumatic to her. She always tells him what she sees, but he never forces her to do it.
Yeah.
But the thing is the Aes Sedai, all they want to do is study her because this is not a power that comes from. This is not an ability that comes from the true source. This is something completely separate from the true source. So they want to keep her close. They want to keep her close. So they capture her, and right under the Spear Maiden's nose, they spirit both of them out of the out of Kyrene, and they're about. They make it about. They had like a good 6-day lead before everyone in Kyrene begins to realize, wait, something's not right.
Something's
Because
fishy.
yeah, because the thing is that Rand had also had this habit of just dipping on everybody. He'll like open gateways and go to like different places, and oftentimes he'll leave his honor guard behind, his spear maidens, and this pisses them off a lot because like it's their honor, it's their duty to protect him.
Yeah.
And when he leaves them behind like that, it's like, great, like, what are we gonna do now? And so when they realize that, the thing is though, they can't really get too mad. They didn't get really mad at Rand when he gets captured because to them the Spear Maidens are like, are we fucking blind? They stole him. They kidnapped him right under our noses. The fuck? So, a huge force of the. So Perrin's also here in Carrying. He, along with Ruark and no, Bashir is still in Camelin. So Ruark and several of the High Lords of Tyr and Kyrene, they all gather a small force of several thousand men, and they all chase after the Aes Sedai. They know that they have a good lead on them, but see, the thing is, the Aes Sedai are taking their time, and these guys, they're going to continue. They're on the march. They're pushing their horses. They're pushing their men to travel as much distance as possible, and about halfway there to their destination, they actually like managed to close the distance, and about halfway to the Aes Sedai, they come across the delegation from the rebel Aes Sedai. They had Alana with them, and they were actually traveling to Kyrene to chase after Rand, and they had roped Varen and Alana in with them because since Alana has the bond with Rand, the Warder's bond with Rand, she knows where Rand is at all time, and she's leading them to Rand. These women at this point, they want to make sure Rand's, like, they come to some sort of agreement with Rand and make sure that they get him under their thumb. Like, and the thing is that after the whole fiasco in Camelin, the sister that was leading that delegation, she was pushed aside because she was chosen to lead the delegation because of her experience in like negotiations and dealing with politics. But after that whole fiasco, she was pushed aside by two other sisters because these other sisters have a higher strength in the power. And the thing about the Aes Sedai, though they don't technically put a lot of they don't put a lot of their own standing on their strength levels. Um, cult the inner culture of the Aes Sedai, they do. So even though the Amerlin seat could, if they elect a woman to be the Amerlin seat, she could be very weak in the power and barely strong enough to have passed the test to become an Aes Sedai.
Mm-hmm.
She could still that sister could still become the Amerlin seat, and sisters of varying levels of power in of strength in the power can become like leaders. Like they could become heads of their Aja. They could become sitters for the Aja in the hall of the tower. All right, they don't. When it comes to like the politics of the tower and leadership, they don't put much reliance on their strength in the power. However, behind closed doors, they've conditioned themselves to look to the sister who was the strongest in the power. And well, after that fiasco in Camelin, these two sisters had like those two were the strongest. Were the strongest in the power. They take over and they say, "All right, we're gonna do things our way, and we're gonna make sure Rand submits to us,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes." Right, which basically goes against what they were sent there to do in the first place. But they think these sisters believe that they need to take a stronger, like harsher approach with Rand. So
Yeah.
they go chase after Rand but not before sending those girls that Varen and Alana had brought from the Two Rivers down to Saladar.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, they actually come across Perrin's forces from the Two Rivers because Perrin, when he traveled to Cairn with Rand, it was just Perrin and Fail who went with Rand. The rest of his the rest of his troops from the Two Rivers, he tells them to make their way to Cairn as fast as possible. So they run into them. They join up together, and join is a strong word. The Aes Sedai enlist them at that point to travel with them to Cairn. But Alana senses that Rand is slowly moving north towards Tar Valon, and they figured, okay, the delegation from the White Tower must have done something. So they curve north to intercept them. And at that point, they meet up with the other Perrin's forces as well as the Aiel traveling with Perrin, and they all join together and they make their way north. At one point, when they get close enough to the Aes Sedai,
Mm-hmm.
the White Tower's delegation, the scouts that Ruark had sent, the Aiel scouts that Ruark had sent ahead, came back and reported that there is a massive force of Shido Aiel attacking the White Tower's delegation, and they're currently pinned down at a place called Dumai Wells. And the thing is, the Shido have about the Shido have about 40,000 soldiers attacking the Aes Sedai,
Mm-hmm.
and Gowan, who was leading the honor guard. He has his younglings, which number about 500, alongside a contingent of soldiers from Tar Valon, of Tar Valon's honor guard. So there's like probably no more than 1,000 soldiers on there with them, like
Mm-hmm.
1,500 at the most,
Yeah.
and they're completely surrounded by over 40,000 Aiel. Um, they immediately form a circle around the Aes Sedai and protect them as best they can. The Aes Sedai also begin using their power to hold back the Aiel. Now, leading up to this confrontation, they had basically kept Rand locked in that trunk pretty much the entire time. They would only bring him out of the trunk if they're going to feed him or punish him. So the sister leading the Aes Sedai, uh, she's a red sister named Galena, and it's also revealed that Galena is a sister of the Black Aja. Uh, Galena was ordered by Aleda to bring Rand to the White Tower by any means necessary, but he needed to be unharmed. And Galena decided to take some creative licensing uh, with these orders. So every day, Galena would have Rand beaten because she thinks that because to her she thinks that the best way to get Rand to submit to Aleda is to break him. So every day she would have him pulled out and basically torture him, and in an effort to break his spirit. So by the time they reach Tarvon, he'll be this simpering idiot willing to submit to Aleda's rule. And the thing is, Rand kind of made things worse for himself because he attempted to escape when they let him out. At one point, he tried to escape, and some of the warders tried to stop him, and he ended up killing one of the warders in the scuffle. This warder was bonded to one of the Green sisters traveling with this group, and this pissed her off, and so she would also join Galena in beating Rand daily because she's taking out her anger and her grief over losing one of her warders. I should point out that of the 13 sisters that got into Kyrene, there was an extra 20 waiting outside of Kyrene with the main force of the Tarvalon soldiers, with the main body of the Tarvalon forces. So in total, there was over 36 Aes Sedai traveling with escorting Rand to Tarvalon. So Rand could not get out. He could not get out. There was always 6 sisters shielding him at any time. So 6 is more than enough to comfortably shield him and keep him from channeling. And anytime he tried to channel and break the shield, they'd immediately punish him. So this went on for 6 days, and the Aes Sedai, the reason why they chose this opportunity, this moment to capture him and take him to Tarvalon was because they had made a deal with the Shido Aiel. And the agreement they came upon was that the Shido would create a distraction by sending a large bulk of their forces to march on Kyrene to try to take it again. And in response, Rand's forces would send a huge contingent to deal with them and keep them from attacking again. And that's when the Aes Sedai used this to their advantage. While the bulk of his forces were distracted by the Shido, they would capture him and take him to Tarvalon. But the thing is, and they promised the Shido power, they teach the wise ones a few extra tricks or something like that, and basically promised them permanent lands in the Westlands and things like that. But Savannah, who was Kaladin's wife, is now leading the Shido, and this bitch is batshit crazy. She's power hungry. She forced the wise ones to make her into to acknowledge her as a wise one, even though she has no formal training and she never apprenticed for them. And also, she doesn't have a single spark of any kind of abilities. So, in order to become a wise one, you need to have some kind of ability, like either be a channeler or a dreamwalker. Or they hint that there's other talents that the wise ones possess, but they don't really go much into that. But either way, she convinces the Shido to betray the Aes Sedai because she herself wants to capture Rand, who she holds responsible for her husband's death. And she basically wants to make she wants to marry Rand and keep him under her thumb in order to make the Shido more powerful, and lead the Shido against the rest of the Westland and conquer them. And because of this, excuse me, she leads a full force of about 40,000 Shido Aiel against the small contingent of the Aes Sedai's uh, delegation, and they immediately attack. The Aes Sedai use their power to hold back the Shadow's forces, while their combined forces of warders, Tarvalon soldiers, and Gawain's younglings all fight. All hold back the Shido. They actually do a very good job of holding them back. Savannah convinces the other wise ones to use their power and use their own powers to attack the Aes Sedai, and which is breaking a lot of the wise ones' traditions, because wise ones, they don't ever get involved in any kind of conflict. All right, they could be uh, they could be a part of two opposing clans that are fighting each other, but the wise ones will just all sit together and just watch and be like, men, look at them fighting.
Men.
Hmm. And then once the fighting is over, they'll just return to their clans and be all like, "Well, now what do we learn?" But
That's
because so
working.
like they really just don't take any. They don't take any action whenever there's and any kind of fighting. And culturally speaking, Aiel never attack wise ones. So if they see if like enemy Aiel see a wise one on the other enemy's side, they'll avoid her and not lift a hand against her, because that's considered dishonorable to. Uh, it's considered very taboo to harm a wise one.
Mm-hmm.
But Savannah manages to convince the other wise ones to join the fight and use their power against the Aes Sedai. She does this because she and a small group of them had been conspiring against each other, and she convinces the group directly under her to murder one of the other wise ones, which is heinous crime.
Cool.
And the wise ones that helped her murder this one wise one are now in deep with her, so they basically convince all the other wise ones with the Shido to join in the fight, because, well, if it comes out that they murdered one of their own, they're fucked. So they begin using their power. They start firing fireballs and lightning bolts at the Aes Sedai, and it does catch the Aes Sedai off guard at first, but this triggers the Aes Sedai's stipulation of they can only use the power in self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't use it as a weapon unless in the fight against the dark forces and the dark friends, or in the extreme defense of themselves, or in the defense of their sisters.
Yeah.
So now that they're being attacked directly, the Aes Sedai immediately start using their power, and the thing is being they have much more training with the power than the wise ones do. They do a good job of holding back both them and the Shido's forces.
Yeah.
It's at this point Perrin, along with his joint forces of Two River Bowmen, wise ones that came with their own wise ones that came with them from Kyrene, the small group of Aes Sedai, as well as the group of Tyrian and Kyran soldiers, they all swoop in and attack the Shido. But the thing is that their forces only number in about like less than 15,000. So their small forces are going up against the Shido, but they had the advantage of of surprise. So they took the Shido off guard and attacked them on the flank. The Wise Ones and the Aes Sedai both began to not the Aes Sedai from not the Rebel Aes Sedai, but the Wise Ones also began attacking the Shido, and the Aes Sedai, since they're not in direct danger, they don't attack at first, only using their power and support.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the two sisters that had taken charge of the rebel group immediately began leading a charge through the Shadow forces. And the reason why they do this is because they want to take advantage of their oath. Like, they can only use their power in self-defense, and well, what better way to be put in a position to defend themselves than to charge right into battle? So they do this, but they do this because they wanted to go straight for Rand to grab him. And because of this, since the Aes Sedai the White Tower delegation are very focused on defending themselves from the Shido and the Wise Ones. The six sisters that were keeping him shielded, at first they keep on doing what they're doing, right? But eventually their forces are beginning to dwindle. So one by one, the sisters began to tie off their shielding weave around Rand, and until there's only three left shielding him. Now, the thing about Rand, the little trick that Rand had figured out was that unless so if he's actively being shielded, like if another channeler is concentrating on shielding him, he can't really break free because they can adjust the power of their shield to match whatever power he's trying to use to break it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you tie the shield off, then at that point the shield becomes stagnant. It stays at that set level of power that was woven into it.
Yeah.
And so he figured out that you can actually break those shields. He can actually break those shields by targeting the weak spots, and since they're no longer being active, and since power is no longer being actively funneled into the shield, he can actually break them. So once the three out of the six sisters tie off the weaves, he begins like digging through like the weak points in the shields, and he manages to break the three tied off shields.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, he's now at the point where he can easily break the shields of the other three sisters still actively shielding him. So when he breaks the last tied off shield, he immediately breaks the shield from the other three sisters, and he seizes the power, reaches out with his own power, grabs all three sisters, and it's described as him grabbing them and crushing them. Now, when he crushes them, he doesn't like actually crush them with like a weave of air or anything like that to like physically harm them. What he had done was he had grabbed them with weaves of spirit, and he
Mm-hmm.
he basically crunched out their light. He crushed out the light that was coming from them. And when he does this, the final shields immediately break from around him, and he uses his power to break open the chest that he was locked in, and he climbs out. And at this point, this dude is pissed.
I would too.
Yeah, so he looks at the three sisters that were still shielding him. One had fainted. The other one was just staring into nothing, like she's like in extreme shock. And the third one is just screaming bloody murder, because what Rand had done was he had stilled them, so they were all cut off from the source permanently. And stilling is very traumatic for any kind of channeler, and it's supposed to be like an incredibly painful experience. So he basically drove these three Aes Sedai insane by forcefully stilling them. And he turns his attention to Min. He sees that she's still restrained, so he frees her, and then he looks at the sisters. He looks at the rest of the Aes Sedai surrounding him. Their backs are to him, and he begins picking them off one by one.
Damn.
And in the middle of the fight, he notices that, like, at this point, Perrin's forces manage to push their way through to get to him, and they form a ring around him. But as they, in the middle of the fight, he notices that there's like flashes of light appearing in the middle of the fight, and soon Rand notices that there are more men appearing in the middle of the fight. Men wearing black coats, and some of them have these pins on their collars. These men are all channeling, and they're fighting against the Shido. There's like at least a little over 20 of these guys. They make their way towards Rand, and they're being led by Nazrim Taim himself. So just to take a little quick step back. A few months after Rand had set Taim in charge of recruiting and training his newest shaman, Rand returned to them, and just to check up on their progress, he sees that Taim had recruited a little over like a couple hundred male channelers and had begun training them. Ren was very sad, was impressed by this, but he was also a little. He still doesn't fully trust Taim,
Yeah.
but he realizes that yeah, well, the man's getting results. He also reveals to his shaman that that he's going to be setting up a new ranking system among them. So new recruits will be called soldiers, and after they reach a certain point in their training, they will be elevated to the rank of dedicated, and the dedicated get a cross sword pin that will be placed on their collar. And then once the dedicated have reached a satisfactory level of their training, they will be elevated to full a shaman brother.
Repeat
And
the
when they do that,
repeat the last like 2 minutes. Sorry, I had something pop up on my screen that kind of took away the video footage. So repeat the last few things you said.
what did like where from where?
Like the male channeler started channeling from there forward.
The male channelers start channeling.
Well, didn't you say there was a group of channelers of male?
Oh, yeah, like at the beginning of the fucking episode.
No, like just now. After he got released,
Oh,
he took care of the sisters.
Oh, when the shamans show up at the
Yes.
battlefield.
Yeah. So from
Okay,
that
so
point on.
yeah, so several groups of Rand's allies are slowly making their way to him. The group of Aes Sedai have charged into the middle of the fray so that way they can like take advantage of their self-defense oath, and they're basically like clearing a path for themselves using the power. Perrin's forces have successfully made it through to Rand, and and by this point Rand had knocked out all of the remaining Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
And they begin noticing that there are these flashes of light appearing in the middle of the battlefield, and these flashes are actually gateways that the shaman created. And out of these gateways come the shaman themselves, men wearing black coats, and some of them have different type of pins, and some of them have embroidered golden dragons on their sleeves. And just to step back a bit, a few months after Rand placed Taim in charge of training his shaman, he goes back to check on their progress, and he finds out that Taim had been very successful in his recruiting efforts and now has a little over 200 shaman recruits. And Rand still doesn't fully trust Taim, because the thing is that Rand believes he's slowly beginning to succumb to the madness, because now Rand is starting to hear the voice of a man in his head, and he believes that man is Lews Therin Telamon, his previous life. And Lews Therin's voice is mad, is still thoroughly insane, and he finds himself he finds that Lews Therin's voice pops up more often under certain situations, especially whenever he sees and deals with a shaman, like especially Taim. Lews Therin's voice starts going crazy, saying, "You gotta kill him! You gotta kill him! You gotta kill him!" Hell, when Mazrim showed up in Camelin, he actually had one of the seals on Darkwood's prison with him, and he gave it to Rand, and Rand had a moment where Lews was kind of going crazy in his mind, telling you got to kill him and you got to break the seal, right? So because of that, Rand can't really fully bring himself to trust Taim, but he sees that Taim did good work, and he reveals that he has a new system he's creating a new ranking system for the shaman.
Yeah.
So new recruits will be called soldiers, kind of like how new Aes Sedai are called novices, novices. And then once they reach a certain point in their training, they will be elevated to the rank of dedicated. kind of like how the Aes Sedai become accepted when they're halfway through their training. And dedicated are given a cross sword silver pin, and they pin it onto their collar. And when the dedicated complete their training in full, they're elevated to the full rank of a shaman, and they're given a golden pin of a dragon. And in Taim's case, like yeah, he has both pins now because since he is more advanced than any of the recruits, he is of course immediately made into a shaman brother.
Yeah.
All of these shaman wear all black clothing, black coats, pants, everything. Taim kind of took it a little bit further and had gold dragons embroidered on his black cloak, his black coat. But yeah, so Taim had somehow suspiciously figured out that Rand was in danger and he could be found at Dumai's well. So he led a small group of his dedicated and a shaman and came to Rand's rescue. So the shaman made their way through, began coming through gateways in the middle of the battlefield, and they start brutally killing the Shido Aiel around them. Like they use weaves of air and fire to boil their bodies alive, to set them on fire. There's fire bolts and lightning bolts going everywhere. Blood, their heads are popping, their bodies are being ripped apart. It's brutal. And they make their way into to where Rand is, and they form a defensive circle around him. They create a weave of air, creating a dome around Rand, completely cutting the Shido off from Rand, and so Rand's small forces are being protected. And Taim comes up to Rand and after making sure he's all right, Rand gives the order to attack. He's like, "All right, Taim, show me what my shaman can do."
Ooh.
And Taim looked a little annoyed because when Rand gives him the order, he kind of looks annoyed. He looks really annoyed. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But he says, as you wish, and he barks an order to the shaman to form a line. And when he gives the order, they're to raise the shield and allow the Shido to surge forward. And he gives the order, and when he does this, he orders them to form. He gives out a command, which basically tells them to what the shaman do. After they raise the shield and the Shidos surge forward, they create a meat grinder. They use the
meat grinder?
shaman. Yep. So the shaman, using weaves of air, create these basically vortexes of compressed air that create blades. So you don't see them, but there's basically these whirling cyclones of air blades. So when the Shidos surge forward, they run immediately into it and they immediately get torn apart. And it was brutal. The rebel Aes Sedai had managed to make it into the circle before the shaman appeared and created their defensive line. So the Aes Sedai are watching this and they're horrified. And even Rand is like, holy shit. So the Shido are surging forward and they're immediately getting ripped apart by the shaman's defensive line. And after it doesn't take long, immediately when the Shido realize that they're being torn apart by the shaman, the ones at the very front begin to stop and they try to turn and run away, and they're screaming no, turn, run. But the ones in the back are still surging forward because they don't know what's happening. So the ones that are trying to get away are being pushed into the meat grinder and they're getting torn apart. And eventually it sets in. As more of the Shido try to get away, the others in the back realize, okay, we need to run. So eventually all of the Shido, they dip. They're running for their lives. They're terrified. And this was shocking for me because the Shido, the Aiel in general, they're not afraid of much. It takes a
Yeah.
lot to scare these guys. And well, the shaman put the fear of God in these guys.
Well, when
Or
you
I'm sorry.
throw them into a meat grinder, yeah, you're gonna like,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We're gonna go.
Yeah. Um
Mm-mm. Damn. Could you
so
imagine that in live action?
oh
Jesus.
that would be rated R. That
I
would be
mean,
rated R.
there was already some
Yeah.
gore kind of happening a little bit
Oh yeah,
in the
there's
Wheel of Time show, so I can see them doing it, but still, damn.
yeah. But up to this point it was still pretty that was tame compared to what happened here at
Oh,
Dumai's
that's
Well.
true. That is true.
Even now, like I'm on book 9 now, and even now they reference Dumai's Well, and it's like people who are there personally, they're like,
Damn.
they're all like,
Damn.
yeah. Remember when the shaman showed up at Dumai's Well? Don't remind me.
God damn.
So after the Shido are routed, everyone comes to Ren, makes sure he's okay, and some of the Aes Sedai offer to heal him because he was still bruised and battered. Taim offers to heal him, but Rand still this still causes the voice of Luce Theron to like go crazy whenever other male channelers show up, so he refuses, and also because he still finds there's something off about Taim. So instead, he points to Alana and tells her that she'll be the one to heal him, and she's surprised because like this will be the first time since she involuntarily bonded him that he's actually allowed her to come close. But she heals him, and after that, the other rebel Aes Sedai like kind of close in on him and basically tell him like, "Well, are you ready to accept our help now? Are you ready to like give up your foolishness?" And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. There will be no me begging for your help. We're not doing this anymore. You're not. I'm not your puppet. I'm not your pawn. I'm not going to be playing your sick little game or play by your rules. From now on, this is my game and my show.
Ooh.
So, if you want my help, if you want my support, you're going to pledge yourselves to me. You're going to swear oaths of obedience to me, or we're not going to be doing anything, or you're not getting anything from me." And the Aes Sedai, there's like about like there was still only like the small number of them, like less than 10 of the rebel Aes Sedai, but like they looked like they were about to like tell him no, like, no, we're not doing this, right? Like they were going to try to argue further, but then they suddenly realized that they're surrounded by more than 20 Ashaman. Like the Ashaman all close ranks around them, like,
Damn.
and staring. Yeah, as I've said before, male channelers, even like one of average strength, is stronger than most Aes Sedai, most female channelers. Male channelers are naturally stronger in the power than women are. As it is, Nynaeve herself, her level of strength probably rivals that of an average male channeler. So she could probably maybe contend with a couple of them, one of the lower powered channelers, but consider lower power male channelers. But considering that she is the only one in the White Tower of that strength, you need like the thing is in order for a fight between Aes Sedai and a shaman to be fair, is that the Aes Sedai need to have at least double the number of a shaman in order for it to be a fair fight. But then again, the Aes Sedai have the advantage of being able to link with each other. Male channelers can't link with each other and share power with each other. They're all basically their own solitary fighter.
Yeah.
And when you're faced with like 20 plus a shaman, the only choice that the Aes Sedai had was to kneel,
Yeah.
and they all swore allegiance to Rand right then and there.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah. So that is pretty much where the book ends. On a little side note, I forget I had this written down and I totally forgot.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, going back to when Matt went with Matt was sent to Saladar,
Mm-hmm.
Avienda, who is a former spear maiden, she became an apprentice to the Wise Ones, and she was set to set by the Wise Ones to educate Rand on their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Avienda had become Rand's lover, and Avienda realized that she fucked up because she considers Elaine as a very close friend and a near sister, as they call
Mm-hmm.
them. Uh, and the thing is, she had promised Elaine to keep Rand on the straight and narrow path, so that way eventually the two of them would get together. But Avienda caught the feelings and slept with Rand, and now she felt like shit, and she realized she needs to make things right with Elaine. So she tells Rand that she's going with Matt to Saladar so she can, because she needs to speak with Elaine. And she does speak to Elaine, and she tells Elaine what happened. And the thing is, Elaine, she is a little bit, she does feel like a slight bit of jealousy and anger towards Avienda, but she tells Avienda that she's not, like, Avienda doesn't owe her anything and she's not, like, angry with Avienda per se, because at this point, Min had told uh, Elaine their future, their
Mm-hmm.
shared future, because when Min looked at Rand, one of the first times Min looked at Rand, she saw his future and she knew that he was supposed to lead he was supposed to be a leader in a great battle. But she also knew that he would fall in love with 3 women who would all share him.
Mm.
And one of them was herself, the other one was Elaine, and the third was Avienda. And Min had told Elaine this. And when she joined Rand, she didn't waste any time because Min had become Rand's third lover the entire time they were together in Kyrene and Camelin.
Yeah.
And the entire time Elaine Avienda was with and by this point Avienda had already traveled to Saladar with Matt.
Yeah.
So I forgot to add that because it is important. Like romance, that's me. That you see, that's the part of me as a reader. I'm not very big on romances. I've read romance books and they're good, but like sometimes in like these kind of fantasy settings, I'm like that's not important. I'm not reading this for the romantic side. I'm reading this for the action and adventure, the
Yeah.
fantasy settings. So like I easily forget about the romance part of it. So like I'm sorry, but yeah, so Min had begun her own affair with Rand in this book.
Mm-hmm.
After when she reached Camelin, the two of them became quick buddies, and they began. She becomes his lover, and the thing is that Elaine realizes, like later learns that both Avienda and Min had slept with Rand, and she's like, "Fuck, and am I really the last person to get some? The fuck."
Damn.
To get some of that Rand, get some of that dragon. So
Jesus.
that is so. Aside from that, the thing is that Avienda when Elaine tells Avienda that what Min had told her, Avienda is a little skeptical because she's like, so wait, are you willing to share Rand? Because in Aiel culture, it's not uncommon for two women to marry the same men. But usually, when two women want to marry the same man, before they do that, they have this sort of sister code. So, for one thing, if they both want to marry the same man, the two of them must become first sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an actual ceremonial process of two unrelated women uh, getting closer and becoming as close as first sisters. So by this point, Elaine and Avienda, Avienda had already considered Elaine her near sister because they had already become close friends. But
Yeah.
now, when Elaine tells Avienda that she's willing to share Rand, Avienda's like, so, well, wait, if we're going to share him, we need to become first sisters first. So Elaine's like, all right, how do we do that? And she says, well, we just need to spend more time together and become closer. And so that's what they do. And for the next two books, they spend a lot of time together. They get to know each other better, and they eventually do become first sisters. Go through the ceremony and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
that leads them closer to becoming equally romantic partners for Rand. And Min becomes part of that too, but that doesn't happen until book 9. But we got a quadruple coming on here.
Oh God.
Yep.
Oh Lord. Too many people.
And
How they do it?
and spoiler alert, Elaine doesn't get any until book 9.
Damn.
So she has to wait 2 whole books.
Damn.
Well, wait. Yeah, she has to wait 3 whole books. I'm sorry.
Damn.
Yeah. But anyway, that is where we're going to leave. That is where the book ends. So as you can see, a lot happened. There wasn't really much action per se, but we saw a lot of character growth with our girls. They really level up, and they're beginning to become more independent now that they're not considered novice. They're not considered accepted anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Egwene becomes a freaking leader of an entire rebel faction of Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Rand starts taking charge. He's not gonna put up with the Aes Sedai shit anymore, especially after what Elena did.
Yeah.
Like this was some
That's some bullshit.
for him. This was some bullshit right here. And leading up into book 7, we see Rand becoming more and more of like he takes his role as leader. He takes his leadership role more seriously now, and we'll slowly see him take action, take more affirmative action. And he also he's going to make more mistakes. I'm going to tell you guys that right now. He's going to make some more mistakes. And eventually we will see our girls finally get a hold of the Bowl of the Winds, but that's not going to happen until book 7. And there's going to be more happening. Now, I gotta say, books 6 and 7, like, they're good books for what they are. I personally feel like they kind of dragged on because it was just more focused on building up the characters, leading up to something more. But at the climax of book 7, leading up into book 8, and now book 9, we're gonna start seeing more, like, climatic battles. We're gonna see more. Things are gonna get more interesting.
Yeah.
And I will say also the Shan Chan will return. In fact, they've already returned. I haven't mentioned them much because they had such a small role in this book.
Mm-hmm.
But they did return, and they had actually conquered the city of Tenchiko, which was we had our girls had been in book 4. And before in book 5, I had mentioned that Queen Morghese had actually survived, and she had fled from Camelin, and she herself had decided to after she realized she was being controlled by Robin, she didn't know it was Robin, but she knew that he was somehow doing something to her. She fled Camelin and decided to go to Amadicia, which is the the home of the White Cloaks, where they hold their capital. That is White Cloak territory. And in this book, she wanted to try to convince the White Cloaks to help her retake Andor, because because of everything Robin had done, she had basically alienated herself from all of her allies. So none of her former allies would ever support her again. And so she decided to go to seek foreign aid from the White Cloaks of all people. I don't know why she didn't try, I don't know, going down south to Morandi, or maybe even going to Tarvalon. But the thing is that she's still angry with the Aes Sedai, because they lost her daughter, and they're still not telling her anything about her daughter. So she doesn't trust them enough to go to them for help. So throughout this book, we see Morghese being whittled down, and like the White Cloaks are putting pressure on her to accept unfavorable conditions for their aid. Yeah. And unfavorable meaning that a permanent presence in Andor. Because before, Andor didn't really tolerate the White Cloaks' presence in their country. They were there, but they couldn't really enforce much of their laws, like of their own policies. I mean, if they did, it was like in small isolated cases, but they couldn't really do much. Now they're pressuring her to sign a treaty that will allow them to establish permanent holds in Andor, and basically allow them to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
And hold on, let me see. Was it in this book, or does this happen in the next book? It is in book 7. Yeah, okay, cool. It is in book 7. Cool. So shit will eventually happen concerning Morghese, but for right now, she is being held as a hostage by the White Cloaks, and they're trying to their leader, Lord Captain of the Children of the Light, Padron Niall, Niall, I don't know how to pronounce that, holds her in the he keeps her captive, and is basically trying to force her to sign a treaty that would allow them to occupy Andor and do whatever the fuck they want. So, but not much happens here in this book. We do see more happen in book 7. So, but until then, this is the end of book 6, The Lord of Chaos. Next week, we're going to continue the series by reviewing book 7. All these fucking numbers. And book set. We will be reviewing book 7.
Yep.
Let me fucking forgot the name. All right, rewind. All right, so that is it for book 6. Next week we will continue the series in book 7, A Crown of Swords.
Litty titty.
All
Until
right.
then.
Well,
bye.
Bye.